TikTok, it's time to rock. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew. I'm here with the 5150s. There's four of us, soon to be five on this show. We're over the mammoth 8.5-hour show that we did as our core contribution to the passing of Eddie Van Halen. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit in the introduction. But as usual, it's my pleasure to be with some cool guys. I'm from New Zealand. On the top rung, we have all the way from
Washington State in the States, Kurt5150. I haven't slept in 3 days since that 8-hour marathon. I'm so jacked up about it. I haven't settled down.
And down here, all the way from Melbourne, we have two awesome guys. We have Brad 5150 and we have the Hos. My gosh, you guys are looking good. It's fantastic to see you, my southern brothers.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I'm feeling nice and refreshed after the 8.5-hour marathon.
Oh, guys, I want to thank you guys personally. The Rev was there, Hos was there, Brad jumped in and took us home. We had a great time. We're going to do a couple of special shout-outs, but I think the fact that we got together and had some awesome stories. Hos, thank you for getting Brian on. Thank you for him especially, because some of the nuggets and some of the rabbit holes he took us down, oh my gosh, that I can't wait for him to come back on for part 2, brother.
Well, I've spoken to Brian since then, and so for anyone that didn't see the show, we're talking about Brian Young, who was David Lee Roth's guitarist for 6 years.
Yep.
And man, does he have some stories, and he shared some of them, but he said he would love to come back on at some point in the future. And I'm sure we can do a part 2 with Brian, and there'll be way more stories that, although it seems like it's going to have to be a show where there's lots of sake, because I think that always helps unlock stories, you know?
Yeah. We'll send them a case.
I have a list of questions. I only got through the tip of the iceberg with that guy.
Yeah, me too. I think that now that we know he's got so many wonderful stories, I've got a bunch of questions I'm keeping in Apple Notes on my phone, and I think between the four of us, man, that's going to be a special episode. And can I just say, while we're talking about special guests, one of the people that we were talking about with Caleb and Brian was another incredible guitarist that has a band in LA called the Brown M&Ms, which is Toshi, who also is Jimmy Kimmel's guitarist. And I've spoken with him since, and he said he would love to come on the show too.
Oh my gosh!
So I think,
that's fantastic.
I'm sure Toshi has got some of his own crazy stories. I met him through. I did a lot of touring with Colin Hay back in the day, both with Men at Work and also with him as a solo artist. And Toshi was doing a lot of the Men at Work stuff whenever the budget sort of didn't allow for to fly out people from Australia, and so it kind of became a more American-based rhythm section. And so I met Toshi through Colin.
You keep bringing these guests on, I'll baptize you, and we can change your name to Simon 5150 on the next show.
Well, speaking about the 5150s, we're streaming on our Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen. There it is there, the 5150 show. Go to Facebook and you'll find us, and there on the banner there you'll see the usual culprits, myself. There's Brad there, and there's the Rev. So hang out with us there. We're slowly growing that page, and also on this page here, which is our British Electric Blues, all about the blues. We're streaming on there as well. So if you want to hit us up there as well. On the bottom there, again, we've got to push our Instagram accounts related to the channel, all floating there on the bottom, including Hos. Hook us up there, guys, and we'll be grateful. I think I'm just about done. I'm going to grab a Coke. I think Brad's got a couple of things to talk about. Then I think, what are we going to do? Are we going to talk about our guest, or are we going to do the shout out? What are we going to do? What do you guys want to do? I can't remember.
Let's do the shout outs, and then I'll bring the guest on.
Yeah. Okay, so Brad, what's the special shout outs, brother?
Big shout out to Warren, our brother Warren. Prayers and everything are with you, buddy. So we can't wait to hopefully you jump in the chat. We're looking forward to seeing you in the chat again. Your humor is well and truly missed. And we love you, brother. So looking forward to seeing you soon and doing things with you on the show. So hang in there, brother. Hang in there. And John, ZD351.
Yeah, man.
We have to give you a massive shout out, brother, for all the wonderful artwork and all the stuff you've been doing for us, mate.
Amazing.
It's guys like you that make us keep doing this silly little thing that we're doing here. That's why we do it, it's
John's a legend.
So John, fellow Australian and Melbourneite, and we well and truly appreciate you backing us all. You've backed me, you've backed Simon, you've backed Kurt, and you've backed Andrew. So thank you so much. We
absolutely.
Really, just goes to show, Aussie blokes, mate, they're pretty good guys,
Yeah, my Seahawks, their punter is from Australia, Michael Dixon, and he had a first double punt in a game last night. First ever. That guy's athletic. Amazing. Simon, real quick before I jump in the chat, your book came yesterday. So I'm going to send it to CJ to get some signatures on it. Just thought I'd show you that.
Thank you so much, brother. That is awesome. I'm really, really humbled and excited by that. Listening to CJ was really, really super cool. And hearing like the evolution of the Van Halen encyclopedia and how all of that came about, and how now, we live in a different world, and it's just, there's so much new information, especially since Eddie's passing, but also because of social media and all these things. It would be impossible to keep updating the book in a print form anymore. And I found that really fascinating that he was talking about. But Kurt, thank you so much, brother. That's to have an actual, I've got a bookshelf full of books. I'm sort of an old school. I like the tactileness of having the paper in my hands. And so to have a version of the encyclopedia signed by CJ is awesome. And I can't thank you enough. I will definitely find a way of making that up to you.
Yeah, you're doing it right now just by joining us. So thank you. Andrew, I'm going to do a shout out to all the fine folks in the chat who have blessed us with their presence. Yeah. So we have Christine Taylor. Thank you, Christine, for joining. We got Donald. What is it? Sabo. Donald, thanks for joining. Of course, always Ellen. She's always here. Thank you, Ellen. The one and only Keith Campbell, the winner of last show's 5150 pick. Keith, good to see you, buddy. We got guitar maker from California, Neil Daly.
Oh, yeah.
I think your guitar's coming soon, Simon.
Well, I believe, if I can interrupt you for 1 second, Kurt.
Go ahead.
Neil says that there's every indication that the guitar is literally days away. So obviously it's Saturday here, so which means it won't come in the next couple of days. But we're thinking like, yeah, exactly. Maybe, who knows? It could be as soon as Monday or Tuesday next week.
Wow.
Obviously we'll talk about some really, really exciting and fun ways that I can share what Neil has built. That'd be great.
Awesome. We got John ZD351 as well. I know we talked
Hey, John.
about his contributions. John, good to see you. Cobra Kai Platoon. Cobra. Good
Cobra, the legend.
Nelson Rodriguez, he's always here. Nelson, good to see you.
Yeah.
We got PPJT from Melbourne as well. So thank you, Pete. Thomas Santiago, he's here.
Yeah. Now, Kurt, apparently everyone has to sing Thomas Santiago's name. Did you know about this?
Yeah, no. Brad's going to do it.
What am I going to do? I haven't got my singing hat on, mate. I need my singing hat on. You know?
Thomas Santiago. How's that?
Hey, Kurt, that puts everyone else's singing of, which is a bit more Peter Allen kind of when my baby comes to Rio, to shame. That's brilliant.
I've been warming up the vocal cords.
Yeah.
Paul Hardy. Paul, thanks for joining. And become a guitarist today as well. Good to see you again. And I think that's about it, Andrew.
Bros, I just want to do a special one, little special shout out to Ellen for being with us in the chat. She especially has some awesome conversations with some of the ladies that joins us, so she makes them feel welcome. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, absolutely. Ellen's always there. That's so awesome to see. Thanks, Ellen.
Yep. Oh, and Leo Safko as well. He's coming in late, all the way from New Jersey. So it's like almost midnight there in Jersey.
Beautiful.
Well, gentlemen, why are we here? This is the drum special.
This is the drum special. This is all about, and long overdue in all of our opinions, an episode dedicated to the unique and absolutely incredible Alex Van Halen. Obviously, since Eddie's passing a year ago, the talk has been all about Ed. But really, I mean, he's the yin to Alex's yang. I think an episode all about Alex and just how unique he is. Whenever you hear drummers talk about other drummers, a lot of the time they talk about how they play musically. But the one thing that they always say about Alex is that you can identify him by his sound of the drums alone. And I think that's a pretty rare thing in the drum world, just by the nature of that. The construction of a drum is so similar that when you're hitting it with a stick, you can play it in a way where, say, the drum fills have your own personality, or the way you feel a pocket and a groove has your own personality. But it's very, very hard to make a snare sound like the only snare drum that sounds like that in the whole world. And I think most of us would agree that Alex is one of those musicians where you can hear him play a simple, 120 beat a minute 4/4 groove like an AC/DC thing, but if he played it on his kit, it would sound like Alex. It wouldn't sound like anybody else. And I just think that to have a whole episode where we talk about the genius that's Alex Van Halen is a beautiful thing. And there's so many wonderful and interesting things to talk about. But of course, it wouldn't be right if we didn't bring on a drummer into the mix to also talk about.
Know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Because otherwise you've got a bunch of guitarists talking about Alex Van Halen, which would be fine, of course. But we've got to bring at least one drummer into the mix to give it from a drummer's point of view. And we are very fortunate to have a drummer that I've played with for a very long time. I first met this guy when I was 19 years old, and I'd didn't know he existed before this. And it was my first real nightclub cover band outside of high school. So I just finished high school, and I just started, I got my car license, and I was starting to work in the clubs and the pubs. And one of the big breaks I got was filling in for Australian guitarist Jack Jones in a cover band that he and some friends had. that was really just a fun Friday night, Saturday night thing that they did when they weren't touring with their recording band, Southern Sons. And so I got asked to fill in because Southern Sons were going on tour, but they wanted to keep their Friday and Saturday nights alive with the bass player and the singer, who was a guy called Andrew Grant. And the bass player was Roger McLaughlin, who was the bass player from the Little River Band. And so I came into the fold. And, of course, because the drummer also played in Southern Sons, who was Virgil Donati, and who I went on to do some fusion stuff with, I didn't know who the drummer was going to be in this cover band. But it turned out to be the one and the only Gerry Pantazis, who I have now played with. There he is. There he is. I haven't finished. So, Gerry, you just have to sit there patiently for a minute.
How about if I just kind of duck down here? keep going.
Yeah, we can't see you. You're good.
Yeah, good.
No, we added you to see your face go red with all the
adulation.
Adulations and salutations you deserve.
So I'm still here, by the way. Oh, there you go.
Hey!
Oh!
Jesus, it's only Saturday afternoon.
Gerry, are you okay?
I'm fine, mate.
So like a lot of us, through high school, I played in cover bands and stuff like that, and got to work with different musicians. But it wasn't really until I came into this band, which was called Andrew Grant and the Three Little Pigs, where I met Gerry, where I got to play with a real drummer for the very, very first time. And the two of us just clicked like brothers, and I was just blown away by Gerry's playing. And so the two of us hit it off as friends straight away, but we also hit it off as musicians. So much so that sometimes when Gerry would go for a drum fill, I would be playing something on the guitar, like a lick or whatever, that was the exact same rhythm as his drum fill. And the two of us would look at each other and laugh, and we had a ball, and we did that for a little while. But so that was how I met Gerry. And then not too long after that, Gerry and I ended up touring with Tommy Emmanuel. So we ended up doing a whole bunch of stuff around the world with Tommy. And that really kind of, I think, it's one thing to play rock covers, and we did everything from Red Hot Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam, and we threw in a bit of Van Halen. So it was actually right in that crossover between sort of 80s rock and grunge, And so we played like a little bit of everything from 80s stuff, like we did some Extreme and Van Halen and stuff like that. But then we also did Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Chili Peppers. It was a fun band, really fun band. But it wasn't until we started touring with Tommy that you really get to sort of sense the musicality of someone. You're not just sort of bashing away in a club at 3 a.m. And I think that really sort of solidified our musical relationship. Anyway, it wasn't long after when we finished touring with Tommy for a couple of years, we were both back in Melbourne, and thought, well, what are we going to do in our downtime? So we decided to jam Van Halen, which is how Fair Warning started in 1998. We decided to jam Van Halen and not to do a gig ever. We just thought, let's just get together every 2 weeks on I can't remember what day it was, but one afternoon each fortnight. Yeah. And we're just going to pick like 2 more Van Halen songs from any album, doesn't matter, and we'll get together and jam. And we did that for about a whole year with no gigs lined up. We just did it purely. What we wanted to do actually was, when we got off the road, was reconnect with how we felt as teenagers. When you get together in your friend's garage, and you're not doing it to make money. You're not doing it for your ego. You're doing it for the joy of making music. And that's why we thought, what better way to do it than with Van Halen? And eventually we did get offered some gigs. So we got offered the Frankston Guitar Festival, and we did that one gig on the back of a truck in the morning. We had the worst slot imaginable, and it was freezing cold and raining. Was it raining, Gerry?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, cold cold and raining, and in the back of a truck, like looking over the sort of that front outside entrance area. And it wasn't until after we played, one of the organizers came up to us and said, geez, if I had known you guys play like that, we would have put you inside later in the day.
That's where memories are made.
Yeah. But anyway, look, Gerry has done, I'm not going to keep talking about him too much longer because Jerry's got some.
Keep going, man. It's fine.
But Gerry is one of the greatest drummers that Australia has. He is an absolute session king and has played on way too many records to list them all. But to name a few things, I mean, he's done a lot of high-end TV work in Australia, and I've bumped into him on some of those things as well. But also, apart from touring with Tommy Emmanuel, he has toured with Larry Carlton and Richard Marx, of course.
Wow.
And many, many other things. The list is long because he's one of Australia's premier session players. But most of all, and which I'm so ecstatic and proud and always humbled by, is if anyone has seen the Van Halen show that I did on YouTube, Gerry is the drummer of that, and he's the drummer in Fair Warning. And so everybody, Gerry Pantazis.
Hey, finally. Started growing a beard, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Welcome, brother.
Thanks, guys, for having me on, man. I'm just, I'm a big fan of the show, and I love all things Van Halen. I love Eddie, what he brought, what he did. It was truly unique and magical. Yeah, I've got a pick as well, man.
Yeah, put it on your head.
There you go. Don't go too close on that, Andrew, because there's a bit of, you know what I mean? My son will go, he always does this. Don't go too close, man. But you brought back some great memories there, man. That gig on the back of the truck was hilarious, because I remember, if memory serves me right, we actually had a gig the night before, and we drove back after the gig. We stayed at my place, slept for a couple of hours, and got up and drove to the gig. And I remember I had a flat tire, or when the gig finished, we went to load in the gear on the back of the car, and I had a flat tire. So not only did we play in the rain and the cold, I had a flat tire to boot as well.
Yeah. So what was the gig the night before?
I dare I say, I think we did a wedding gig for a well-known celebrity at that time that hosted a night show.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah.
Was that gig?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but yes, probably it was that. Yeah.
It was out in somewhere, as a Beechworth or something like that, somewhere out in the sticks.
Yeah,
but that's
right. It was in the sticks. Yeah.
So, but yeah, as Simon said, we met pretty early on, and in that cover gig, and I have fond memories of that gig as well. That was a real sort of honing in your skills sort of gig, particularly because I was filling in for Virgil as well, which added extra pressure to that gig, because all you got on that gig were all these guys sitting in front, kind of doing this the whole gig. I remember my first gig with him, which actually wasn't with you, Simon. Jack was still doing the gig.
So you started earlier than me, and then I came in.
Yeah, then you came in. Yeah, so I started doing that. I did like a weekend of gigs because Virgil was away doing like clinics or something like that, and so I stepped in for a weekend of those gigs, and boy, that was like a baptism of fire right there, because everybody's rocked up to see Virg, and then there's my sort of kit that isn't his. And I remember getting up on stage, and they're all like this, kind of going, well, play. And I was quietly sort of, shitting myself to be polite, but it was great. It was such a great thing. And like Simon mentioned before, we were playing all that sort of early grunge sort of stuff, and Van Halen and Deep Purple. I remember we did some Deep Purple stuff. Jimi Hendrix. I remember
a really cool kind of mixed bag of 70s, 80s, and 90s rock, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember we used to do a killer version of Synchronicity too. That was like a police thing, which was really, really cool.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, there's a whole, and then the extreme stuff. I remember Porno Graffiti got a great thrashing, and also the Mr. Big's drill song used to be.
Oh yeah, Mr. Big. Yeah, we did the drill song. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
great stuff. So we had a real good sort of introduction to the Melbourne sort of cover scene. A really good one, actually. We did that gig for like 6 months or something like that, every Friday, Saturday night. And that get together, once we got off the road with Tommy and we were playing just Van Halen stuff, that was a great opportunity for both of us to really kind of sink our teeth into that early repertoire. Because around that time, I think the 5150 was out, and OU812 might have been out at that point. So that was that era of the Sammy Hagar stuff, and we wanted to do the Roth stuff. And,
we really did concentrate mostly on. We did some Hagar, like we did 5150 and a few things, but mostly it was Roth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all Roth, and we chose some really obscure sort of stuff to work on and to play, and. Funny enough, one of the rehearsals Simon actually recorded, and I'll just show, just so you know, it was dated 98. I don't know if you can get a close up of that. And so that's our rehearsal. That was the gig in order. I think that was the set that we did at that Frankston guitar show, or something.
We started Unchained and segued it into Sinner's Swing.
Yeah, and then we did Little Guitar. In a Simple Rhyme was killer, because I remember at the end of that we would do.
Hey, we broke it down and did a long bass solo, didn't we? Broken down.
That's right, for the intro. Yeah, man. But to segue into Running with the Devil, what did we used to do? Was it the Goth?
Growth.
Growth. Yeah, we'll do that. But look at, the tunes were the House of Pain. Hear about it later. Everybody wants something. Dirty movies, Dirty movies. What else?
How much are you going to be selling copies of the CD for, brother?
There's only one copy, man. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But that was a great. Sorry, Kurt.
I was going to say, Simon, you said you were just a few years out of high school. I think you've aged yourself now, and we're pretty close in age.
Oh yeah, so okay. Well, I was born in '74, so if that gives you an idea.
Oh, okay, maybe not. I'm younger.
I was born in '70, so I'm cracked the 50s. I cracked the 50s just last year, so yes, an achievement nonetheless.
What's an achievement? Because you've still got hair and I don't. How did that happen?
I don't know, man. It's all the preservatives,
Well, that's why I made sure my new car had a sunroof so I could feel the wind in my head.
That's what happened.
It's aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic. That's right. Oh dear.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
But they were fun days, Gerry, and the when you're playing a band with musicality at that level, when you're just out of high school and you're playing all that material, like you're saying, you're playing Police, Jimi Hendrix, Van Halen, Mr. Big, Extreme, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Honestly, after that, pretty much any phone call you ever get is going to be like, oh yeah, all right, I guess I'll do that for the money. It's all downhill from there,
Yeah. What I liked about that period of our sort of, playing days, I guess, or formative years or whatever you want to call it, was we were doing a lot of such a wide range of stuff. And having the rock side of it as a avenue to draw influences from, to take it to other gigs, or to apply to someone's, songwriting or something like that. Any of the rock stuff that I kind of got into and still am, especially the Van Halen stuff, it filters through my playing. I hear myself doing certain things. I kind of go, well, I'm kind of quoting somebody else, you know, and I think that's what Alex. Now we can kind of get into Alex's sort of thing here, because learning or listening, really listening to what he did on those early albums was really quite amazing. And when we had to come do our homework for that fair warning gig at the guitar show, and you found some of those sort of ISO tracks, they were online, whatever it was, so I could solo. We could all solo our own parts, and boy, did that lifted so many little trinkets.
Yeah, the subtleties.
In what Alex did. Some of the things I couldn't hear on the actual recording because they were mixed maybe too far back or whatever.
It's just that the other instrument frequencies end up soaking up some of the articulations and the nuances of whatever you're doing with the drumsticks, right? And it's actually the same backwards. The cymbals in the drums and everything else, and the reverb on the toms is soaking up the articulation of all the subtle little things that Ed's doing with the pick. So being able to hear that stuff isolated, man, it's so much help. So much help. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was so surprised to hear how much it was drowned in reverb, especially Alex's kit, you know, like I mean, knowing where it was recorded in either Studio A or Studio B was it Sun which studio was it in, Simon? Do you remember?
Sunset Sound.
Thank you. Yeah. So some of that album they recorded in the smaller room and also in the big room, depending on what the availability was on those sessions. But you can't really tell because it's so much verb on the whole thing. You know what I mean? So maybe that was a thing that Don Landy had to kind of, you know, had to work with as far as making the album flow. So it doesn't sound like it was recorded in one studio and then another, as sometimes those sort of situations can pose a few sort of, you know, I guess, you know, sonic issues, you know.
I mean, I don't actually, maybe someone in the chat knows this. I don't know. What's that,
Gerry? One of Ted's methods to recording that first album was he wanted to capture the live sound. And so I think one of the things other than trying to record it, you know, all of them in one room, was getting a lot of reverb to make the album sound big and almost live, like they were playing in a auditorium or in a big venue. That was one of the things. And Eddie always talked about, he didn't like how Alex's drum sounded on that record.
All right. Okay.
If you notice on Van Halen 2, it was a little bit more sonic.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know, Kurt, or does someone in the chat know that we know they use the chamber, of course, at Sunset Sound for the reverb on a lot of the stuff, like Eddie's guitar and Roth's vocals. Did they also use that for Alex's toms and stuff, or did they use an outboard reverb?
No, they used the chamber.
Chamber for the toms? Yeah, right. Well, that explains it. Yeah. Okay.
And it probably and it's probably the reason why it sounds like it's in the same room, because they're using the same reverb sort of send, you know. Yeah. Which is as natural as can be, I guess, when you're using a chamber. You know, not processed or anything like that. So, I found when we were kind of doing our homework on that, those isolated tracks were a tremendous help, and his articulation on all the albums, but particularly the first one. His dynamic range. I think I remember ringing you up and going and saying, you know, he's not playing rip shots on this such a section, and he's really slamming in this one, and his double bass drum playing, his shuffle playing on the kicks were something so. I'm not going to say it was unique to my ears, having heard that for the first time, and I think the first time I heard him do the shuffle thing was obviously, my era was the 1984 album when I first heard that record, you know, Hoffa Teacher and tracks like that.
Are you saying that was your first album you heard?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was and then I went back I went back and got all the early stuff, and
cool, man.
Kind of connecting the dots, and hearing let's say the transformation of the band, to what I was hearing that was on the radio and on the TV. So hearing Alex's double bass drum work early on on that first record is quite unique.
Wow.
And his articulations and his accuracy is to behold. It really is. It's incredible. He did things on that. I had particular trouble playing "I'm the One."
Yeah.
That sounds, on the surface, it sounds pretty okay. He's shuffling away on the kick drum and the thing. But there's one part where he plays. It does, and I try to, I transcribed that whole record so I could try and play it as authentically as possible. And there was one passage on that song, or in that song. It's when Eddie comes out of the and then it modulates. That descending line, Alex plays as fill, which I had on rotation. I just looped this bad boy over and over. I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing? Yeah. And it's that whole that thing, I don't know if you can hear that. I just got to practice that. My feet are hitting the floor, But I just saw, how clever is that? Like, where did that come from? What stemmed those ideas,
One of the things, Alex was a couple years older than Eddie. I want to say a little bit older, 2 years older than him. And he used to fill in for quite a bit with his dad's band when their drummer couldn't make it. And his dad's a jazz musician, and he used to play in all kinds of these, VFW and Elks clubs. And at the age of 16, 17, 18, Alex is doing, jazz concerts in bars with his dad. And I think a lot of his foundation comes from that swing jazz.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. I couldn't agree with you more. Simon and I talk about this a lot, especially when we were like really dissecting the first record. The swing factor that Alex has got in his playing, which to me, Alex has got on the record as stating as Bonham being a big influence, Ginger Baker being a big influence, and so the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that those guys were influenced by jazz drummers. Now, the one thing that I came across with Bonham was, I think it was a Led Zeppelin concert at the Albert Hall, like 69 or 70 or something like that. And Bonham does a drum solo. And he starts a drum solo. It's in 3/4, right? And it blew my mind when I saw this footage. It's basically what he's doing is going kick hi-hat, right? So I'm hearing that. I'm going straight away. I've gone, that's a Max Roach piece called The Drum Also Waltzes. Right. Yeah. So then he goes, he's quoting Max. Like, it's pretty obvious that he's quoting it. And then Bonham goes off on a tangent and does his own thing, right? Yep. So there's that jazz connection right there. And Ginger Baker was also heavily in the jazz scene as well. He cites one of his early sort of influences as being a local London jazz drummer. He actually, I can't remember his name, sorry, but he talks about it in that Ginger Baker documentary. Was it Beware of Mr. Baker? Have you guys seen that?
No, what's that?
Oh, Beware of Mr. Baker. Yeah, Andrew. Right, how full on is that, eh? It's incredible. A great insight into Ginger's playing and also his
check that out.
Mind and his life. It's great. But the thing with Bonham was, Max Roach. There you go. I heard that. you know. So obviously, this going back to what you were saying, Kurt, about Alex playing with his dad's band, he would have had to play some swing tunes, you know, some standards.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. That's you know. So learning how to play, and Alex has got on the record as saying he's pretty much self-taught. He didn't take lessons, so he learned by listening.
And piano. He was a pianist too, so some of that has to do with his drums.
Oh, big time. You know, yeah, totally. You know, and that develops your ear too, your melodic.
Because Gerry, to your point, like growing up with a father jazz musician, I mean, obviously they played jazz and were exposed to it, but more than that, even the stuff they didn't play, they were probably just as babies and as kids, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, listening to so much jazz that it just goes into the blood, you know? Like, so even if you're not doing jazz gigs, it doesn't matter. It's already there.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
His dad was a reed player. You know, he played 2 or 3 different reed instruments.
I was just listening to Big Bad Bill moments ago, because that recording, you hear Alex playing brushes.
Yep.
He's playing brushes on that, and it's just on the snare drum. So he's doing some wonderful stuff on that. You know, like I can't really name a lot of rock drummers that can do that and make it sound as legit. It's about making it sound legit to me.
I agree. Yeah.
Alex made whatever he played, he made it sound legit. He played.
He wasn't trying to pull something off. He was pulling it off.
He was pulling off, man. Totally. Absolutely. And it's really interesting hearing some of those bootlegs that have come out of like rehearsals of just him and Eddie. I think on the last episode, someone was talking about Girl Gone Bad and the rehearsal, and then just Eddie's trying different things, right? Well, you know that da 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 da. What's Alex going to play? My God, he plays this. Now, you probably can't see. Oh, actually, I'll turn it over. How's that? Is that better?
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'll present you, brother.
Oh, yeah.
So he's kind of playing, to my ears on that tune, he's actually, whether he's playing like the like a double-handed, like a that sort of thing, I like to think that maybe he went all jazzy and played it all with the one hand, which is a real sort of bebop sort of thing, right? So, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
It's kind of that thing, right? To me, that's a real jazz bebop sort of swing thing, which is so it's not easy. You need really good technique to kind of pull that off. Now, whether he did that 2 hands or not, definitely when he went to the bell, that last bit, the da da ba 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 ba, you can hear he's taking it up another notch where you hear the bell. You hear kind of that thing,
Wow.
Only someone with some sort of jazzy, sort of, I guess, fusiony background and that sort of musicality could come up with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just please, I'm happy to be corrected or anyone else's opinion, but I just find that whole thing to be really, really fascinating, the way he would approach whatever Ed gave him or presented to the band. He came up with some really, really great parts. Now,
Gerry, to your point, brother. Sorry, I'm getting an echo. Are you guys getting that? See if I can quiet that down. Oh, that's good.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know.
No. All I was going to say is that because of their background in jazz, their parts that they would come up with were so they were still under the umbrella of rock and hard rock and whatever you want to call those styles from the like 70s and 80s. But it had this backbone in almost big band kind of jazz. You know, actually, Gerry, remember you and I were talking about a comment that a really, really amazing guitarist in LA called Joe Gamble. If anyone doesn't know Joe, check out his stuff. He's great. But he commented, and he was saying that, in his opinion, Alex is one of the last rock drummers and hard rock drummers that came from an influence in jazz, because a lot of the rock drummers up to that point all came from big band jazz, and they just applied it to loud, distorted guitar rock.
That's right.
And you know what? And if you think about how rock developed after that, it was way more four on the floor after that.
Yeah, totally. Even the writing side of it too. You know, I mean, even when, you know, if we take that period of 1984. I mean, what are that? Was that the beginning of like the hair bands, like the real sort of, the shotgun snare drums that came out, all that sort of stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. I love all that stuff, you know.
And I think we all do, and I love that stuff too.
Yeah,
but the thing is, you can't play what Alex played with a shotgun snare drum sound. You just can't.
It just wouldn't work, you know. And also sonically, it'll probably just smother Ed's tone. You know,
Gerry, that 1984 album was the first one they did at 5150 Studios, and there wasn't enough room to put up a full drum kit in the studio.
Yeah,
so
right.
They laid down the Simmons tracks first, and then Alex went back and did the cymbals on another track. So that could make.
I believe that was for a lot of that stuff was like I do know. Is it All Wait? All Wait was apparently
made a mistake.
overdubs, toms and snare and cymbals.
Yeah.
Because you can hear like the cymbals are going through like some other, like almost like a phasey effect, or the kits coming in and out of that sort of effect, sort of processing or whatever it is. So
after.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Actually, Andrew, can you pull up that photo of Ed holding that Steinberger bass of him in 5150? That's a
just
real
hold on for a second.
That's right, man.
Hold on. I'll throw them in there. So, do you want me to go through these photos now and or find that one specifically?
Just find that one, because since we're talking about that period of like the 5150 era and his sort of sounds and things like that.
How's that for a photo though? Sheesh.
Oh,
so
that's
funny.
While
Andrew's looking for this, when he was playing in the those shows with his dad wouldn't allow him to wear his big long hair and afro.
Really?
So he used to get like pomade or grease and slick his hair back into a big old slick ponytail to play in some of those shows with his dad.
And you know, it's funny, Kurt, because in a way, even though Alex had the long hair and all the Van Halen stuff, it was always like a little bit slicked back in style.
Go back a couple there, Andrew.
Yeah.
Sorry, brother.
Keep going. That one.
Right there.
That one there? Okay.
That one. Ed holding that Steinberger.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Now, if you zoom in the background.
Yeah. Oh, it's a whole Simmons kit.
Oh,
ta-da!
Wow.
Bang.
So it's a whole drum kit of nothing but Simmons pads.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it's a really great photo, that one. But you notice that there are some cymbals hanging over the top of that too, right?
Yeah.
So he's got his China there. There's a couple of crashes.
Yeah, see the China. Yeah.
So the thing with that sort of setup and what problems that could pose from an engineering point of view is that, you know, if you're recording overheads on an electronic drum kit, what do you think the sound's going to be coming through the overheads? It's going to be the sound on like plastic.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's only kind of capture that. So they would have had a hard time trying to isolate the sound of that Simmons drum, those toms and what have you, with when Alex went to play a ride cymbal, hit a crash cymbal, something like that. I find that really, really fascinating, which is probably the reason why they would overdub some of that stuff.
Well, also, Gerry, as you would have heard, I mean, there's been plenty of records made around that time before electronic drums where depending on who the tracking engineer was, they hated the sound of the overheads catching the toms and stuff. So what they would do is the drummer would only play the toms, kick, and snare, and then they would overdub all the cymbal crashes.
And a classic example of that is John Robinson when he played on Ain't Nobody? Is that what it's called? Ain't
Nobody.
Chaka Khan tune, yeah. So apparently he did that. There was a separate kick and snare take.
Yep.
I think, and the hi-hats were overdubbed and crashes were overdubbed as well.
Yep.
But then the problem was when he had to play it live, he had to try and combine all those things, these three things. Was like, because he came up with a real cool hi-hat part and then had to figure out, I've got to kind of accommodate all this sort of stuff. So it was probably a recording technique which wasn't sort of that rare back in those days.
Don't you find too, there's probably the extreme version of what Bruce Swedien was trying to do with the Michael Jackson stuff, like Billie Jean. Instead of having hi-hats and cymbals be overdubs, he would have the drummer play it as a take, but he was isolating with baffles all the different things, which means that even the hi-hat was isolated with a baffle around it.
Incredible, isn't it? I mean, it's just
really
really
the beginning of using drum samples.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
Around that time, sorry to go on a bit of a sort of tangent here, but
no, tangents are good.
Bands like, specifically Steely Dan, and Roger Nichols. Yeah, great, right, Kurt? Yeah. Their recording techniques took it to the next level. I think it was Roger Nichols that came up with the computer Wendell, which was an early sampling computer.
That's right.
So albums like I think it was specifically Gaucho. That record was, they had to credit drummers that played on that, but apparently a lot of that stuff was sort of played into that computer, and then they would nudge everything. Everything was nudged on that record, or somewhat everything. You should say.
Somewhat, somewhat.
So it was around that time when they could isolate things and do all those sort of recording techniques.
And so going back to your photo, Gerry, do you think that what the thinking was in the Van Halen camp with Alex trying out the Simmons stuff, because it was obviously cutting edge at the time and it was new and it was innovative, was it an attempt at a production style of where they could isolate things like cymbal crashes, or do you think it was something that Alex was just really into the sound of and wanted to bring it into the overall sound of the band?
I reckon it was a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit of both. And Ed, we know how processed his sound became with 5150, And I think Alex wanted to match that somewhat, and he gave a little hint of that on 1984, didn't he? Because Alex had those. Obviously, Hoffa Teacher was predominantly all Simmons, toms, and kick drums and things like that. Girl Gone Bad, there's a couple of Simmons sort of hits in that towards the end. When there's some tom fills that he does on the pads. So you can tell that they were heading in that direction. But what I loved about it is that it actually didn't sound like that stuff. It didn't sound so 80s to me. It didn't. You know what I mean? It's just like because he had that. He's playing cut through that technology, and
I totally agree. Any other album you've heard, whether it was Mr. or anything else from around that time when they were using electronic samples, it sounded programmed, so it may as well have been. But with Alex. He could play the sounds that were those electronic drums, and it always felt organic because he had that backbone swing.
Absolutely, and all that stuff because he did, whether he was multi-tracking his parts. Like Hoffa Teacher, that's multi-track. That intro is multi-tracked, right? So, but because he played his parts in himself, it wasn't like someone else played another, like a percussion player would play over the top of your drum kits, your drum parts. Sometimes I'm always really weary about that sort of stuff when it's played by somebody else, only because they have a different perspective of time and where things would fall. But when the drummer overdubs his own sort of stuff, he knows exactly what he did on the previous pass. and how it all feels, right?
Yes.
So when you listen to Hot for Teacher, you know, I was forever scratching my head going, how the hell did he do that? You know?
Don Landy worked a long time on mixing that intro to Hot for Teacher.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's well, and you know what? It sounds like he did. And the end result is something that has stood the test of time. That's the thing that I love about it, is that these guys didn't not just throw down stuff. You know, Alex took a lot of care in what he did. Yeah. You know, I can hear that. And then when he would play some of this stuff live, you know, he would play them a little bit differently sometimes. You know, from show to show, you hear little bits and pieces like, you know, with the whole internet now, we can compare shows and have a listen to what they did on this tour, then the same song on another tour. And as Alex approaches it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's very subtle. Some of the stuff he does is really subtle, you know, and I think that's, you know what, I think that's kind of like Alex's improvisational sensibility, that he's able to improvise. He can do that.
You know, I think that as much as we always talk about how Van Halen are a unit and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, which I totally believe is almost no more accurate a statement than with Van Halen. So whether they had David Lee Roth singing or Sammy Hagar singing, the whole was always greater than the sum of the parts, even though each of the four parts was unbelievable. And then you put four guys at the top of their game, let's say all at 110%, and you don't get 440%. You get like 1,000,000%, you know.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I think that what Ed and Alex brought to the table, because of their subconscious knowledge of older styles of music, like maybe beyond, like a lot of great rock players, whether they were drummers, guitarists, bass players, whatever, went back as far as maybe like the Beatles and then Cream and Hendrix and that stuff. But because of their jazz musician dad, Alex and Eddie's stuff went way further back. Totally. And I think that what you hear subconsciously, even in songs like Girl Gone Bad, which is not even a swing, but it feels like it's swinging. It's strange, right? Because that's true, right? That ding 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 ding.
Killer. It's killer, man. It's killer.
Yeah, in terms of like a triplet feel, it's got no swing at all. And yet, I'm sorry, that feels like it's swinging to me.
Absolutely, yeah. And just that forward momentum of that riff. It's kind of hypnotic for me. You know, I listen to that, and especially when Dave comes in and sings it's just, I kind of get emotional about it when I start talking about those parts.
You know what? To me, there's some early Led Zeppelin grooves that are the same as that. But you know what? I'm sorry, they did it better. It's like they took what Led Zeppelin started with and added some different ingredients to the cake recipe. They added more sugar, more salt, more flour, more eggs,
everything. Everything. One with a lot, man. You know. But
they supercharged all their influences, whether it was Buddy Rich, Ginger Baker, Eric Clapton. It doesn't matter, and they just put it all in a pot and made a witch's brew and supercharged the whole thing with like some magic dust, and that became Van Halen. And that's why. And then you put like a vaudeville Vegas showman at the front, and you've got a combination that's just
it's killer, isn't it?
Equable is not a word, I know, but I mean, I'm sorry, but for every other amazing band that's out there, you just can't match the elements. It's like one of those sci-fi movies, like The Fifth Element, where you put all five things together and it creates like a supernova. That's
West Coast cool. You've got West Coast cool guys. You know, that's one of the greatest things I think about Van Halen. It's definitely a reflection of a part of America. For me, anyway, looking outside of America, it just breathes everything about Southern California, from my perspective. Sorry, guys on the East Coast, if you're watching this, but that's the feeling. That's what I get, and I think one of the reasons why they have that ability to give us that feeling is because of the that rhythm that Alex was doing. You know, there's one little analogy, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but we're doing the Doors tomorrow, Brad and I, with the Rock Professor.
I want to go down a rabbit hole.
and John Drensmore. All his drumming patterns are all Spanish styles, you know. The
Latin.
What is Latin? Yeah. So that's what I like, and to hear you, Gerry, you know, link that back to jazz, because we all suspected that, but for you to illustrate that is wonderful. Do we want to go through some of the picks, because I know that the picks that you've got here, because we love gear. Can we go through the picks for a bit?
Let's start with that first one.
And you can discuss what these picks are for us guitar players.
I'll try anyway. So let's go with that first one. Yeah. So that's,
look at that.
That is is that Mammoth? Was that what they were known as, Mammoth, or no? That's before that, isn't it?
Trojan Rubber
There
Company.
you go. Yeah. So apparently,
Or Genesis.
Yeah, or Genesis. That's right. And they changed their name, didn't they? Because they found out that there was a Genesis in the UK.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that photo is the double kicks that he's got going on. So apparently, this is like 1972.
Wow.
So 72 now, Kurt, I got to thank you for sending that link to Simon when he played me that stuff with a band called Cactus.
Yeah, big influence.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was awesome.
This kind of sort of revelation kind of put to rest for me anyway where Alex got the double kick boogie shuffle from. So
I agree.
So 72, that album was out in 72, yeah? The Cactus record?
Yep.
Okay. So it's not hard to kind of, you know, put the two and two together that Alex was so influenced by that record, and so was Ed. And so was Eddie. Especially the intro to Eruption. The but that I almost flipped backwards when I heard
that. When Kurt sent me that, I fell off my chair.
Yeah, and I just
really?
thought,
oh yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. I was the same too, and I kind of urge anyone to find that record on YouTube, and it's there.
What was that particular song with the Eruption drum fill, Kurt?
Let It Swim.
Let It Swing, yeah.
And do you remember the other one that had the boogie? What was that one called?
I'll find it while you're flipping through those pictures.
Okay, cool.
So it was really easy to put the two and two together that Alex and Ed were really influenced by, and the drummer on that record was Carmine Appice. Is that how you pronounce it, right? He's burning on that, man. He's actually, that double bass drum playing shuffle, I hadn't heard anything prior to that. My first sort of inkling to double bass drum playing was Billy Cobham's Spectrum album, on a song, the opening track on that album, which is called Quadrant. Actually, can I play a little bit of that? Was that going to infringe our YouTube sort of laws or anything like that? Can I just
go for it, brother?
Can I just play a little bit? I'll just play the intro of this is like Billy Cobham 1973.
If we get copyright blocked, we'll have to block it.
That's all right.
You guys get the gist, right?
Yep.
So you can hear that. That's Billy doing his thing. So I'm pretty sure that Alex would have heard that as well at some point.
100%. Yeah.
It's the other song.
What's Eddie got there? Is that a Les Paul Jr. or something?
It's a gold top, but it has P90s in it, and he actually chiseled it out and put a humbucker in there.
Of course he did. What else would he do at 14 years old?
Yeah. So you can hear those references in his playing, in Alex's playing, and how he was able to really incorporate that in what Eddie was writing, which again was heavily influenced by what they were both listening to. So I find that really, really fascinating. And as you kind of go on, the double, obviously, by the time they hit 1978 with the first album was 78.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can see that picture there. I think that's more in the club dates. Right.
Yeah.
So you can see how it's growing.
I mean, just look how tightly they're all packed in there. I mean, that's just one of the smallest stages you've ever seen, and yet it's mostly Alex.
It's mostly Alex. Yeah, exactly right. But look at that setup, man. It's like, he took it to the next. He just took it to the next level. Whether he saw someone else's setup, maybe he saw Cactus playing live and Carmine had a similar type setup. I don't know. I'd have to kind of try and find some pictures of that era on the net. But nonetheless, that would be a really, really big drum sound right there.
Yeah. Oh man. Can you imagine the sound of that kit in a tiny, tiny club?
One of the first shows that Eddie and Alex went to was Derek and the Dominoes.
Right.
That was one of the first.
I love
that
photo. That's one of my favorite photos. That looks so good.
Let's talk about
gas mask is for.
No.
In the club days, when Alex would come out, they used to shoot fire extinguishers over his drum kit to make synthetic smoke, and he would go underneath all the white plume of fire extinguisher material, and he would put that gas mask on and start playing until all the white stuff settled. Then he'd take it off.
So Jerry, now you know how the start of your drum solo at the Corner Hotel is supposed to be.
Yeah, and then soon after that we get shut down. The world's shortest gig.
Tell us about this kit, Jerry.
Yeah, look, I did some. I was always fascinated by that photo, and I believe that photo is Van Halen 2 when they were tracking the second record. Yep. So the thing that we all kind of were intrigued by, well, I was anyway, were the bass drums. So what Alex did, which I don't think he did on the first record, he may have done it on, well, he definitely did on this one, was he actually, those are two bass drums joined together. Yeah. And I did find out, what did he do? He they joined and sealed the bass drums together and bolted them with black stripes or strips, you can see there. And the chains around them are more like just an effect. They did nothing. That was just more like a visual thing. Yeah, for looks, right? So that was the first sort of kit that he started exploring, the whole bass drum thing, joining bass drums together. Now, where he got that idea from, I've got no idea. If someone can enlighten me on that, that would be great. And it was around that point where, his snare drum sound, the early stuff was, the Ludwig Superphonic snare drum, the 14 by 6.5 for the drummers out there.
Wow, that is so cool.
Now that kit is he called that the stainless steel kit, and they used that for the tour for Van Halen 2. So now you can see there was some additions there, like the Octabands. Now they were a Tama, so not affiliated with Ludwig at all. So he would just grab stuff and put it on the kit for visuals. Now, I don't think, look, they were all mic'd up. Everything's mic'd up on that thing. So I don't know I haven't seen any footage of him actually playing those octabands or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, there's the fire extinguisher right there.
Yes, there's another fire extinguisher shot there. More for visual, I guess. But I guess if someone was to, light a fire, Alex was ready. But I guess
it doesn't hurt to have the world think that your playing is so explosive that you need fire extinguisher.
Yeah, that's right. It's killer, isn't it?
That's rock and roll right there.
And that's the same kit, but apparently as the tour went on, he would put numbers on the toms, and he also wrote flammable on the bass, which I think is a hoot, right?
That's it. That's Corner Hotel, flammable.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And again, what's changed on that one is that he's dropped a couple of octabands from the previous photo. So as
those are truck struts. Those red things.
Yes,
struts off of a pickup.
That's right. So that purely for visual, enhancement. It didn't do anything to kind of stabilize the bass drum. Although it probably did, gave it some stability, I guess. But I just found that. Oh, okay. Now this kit is amazing, right?
Look at that for a photo.
All right.
Oh,
so this kit was used on the on the Women and Children First tour. Yeah. No, I believe it was the World Invasion tour. I think.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Hey, Gerry, I've got a quick question, bro, to interrupt.
Go.
The very long extended bass drums, was that a sonic thing? Was that just so David Lee Roth could have something to jump off?
Well, okay. So a bit of both. So what he did with those bass drums, again, it's that two kicks joined together, right? So the four bass drums, right? But what he decided
like almost three, like one white one that he's hitting with the beater, then a black one, and then another white one.
Now, what the black part is there, it's actually an accordion type rubber.
Okay.
Oh.
Right? Accordion to who?
Yeah. So apparently you can angle that each one of those bass drums either way. So he could. And what the problem was is when Dave would before they went out on tour, Alex and his roadie or his drum tech wanted to test the stability of it. And apparently Alex jumped on it and he crushed the shells because they couldn't take the weight. So that was the first one, I think, where him and his tech lined the inside of the shell with fiberglass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what that did was reinforce the strength of it. But what it did too, and this is what Alex was saying, he is quoted as saying, is that it actually sounded better. It gave him more projection. So, and I think there's another photo after that, Andrew, where there's a close up. Okay, so that's another one.
Look at that.
Apparently,
this set just sold.
That's in a museum somewhere. Yeah, someone got that.
It looks
went up for auction. Yeah.
It looks like a drum kit version of Madonna's 1990s bra.
Oh yes. Okay. Now
the one with the points, the cones.
Yeah, totally. Now this is the thing I loved about Alex's setups and his sort of, the way he would think about it. That top photo there, that's the one, Andrew. Yeah, that one there. You can clearly see that it's been lined with something in there, but also reinforced with some. I believe they are floor tom legs, which are used. He's just put them in there to kind of add more stability to the bass drum. So and also you could angle it.
So
in
Gerry,
any direction.
What that is heating and air conditioning duct that you would put underneath your house if you needed to go around a corner. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah. So
flex duct.
Yeah. I mean, who thinks of this sort of stuff?
You need some air conditioning, so that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah,
now Andrew, can you focus on that bottom photo because I found this one really, really, really interesting.
That's why you're here, Gerry.
Okay, now you guys are going to check this out, man. So back in the 80s, Pearl, in their wisdom, decided to combine a rototom with a normal drum, right? So the way that thing would be attached So essentially the drum is not, it's got a lot of air floating in and out of it. Normally a drum would have a top and bottom head or just a top head. You know, you hit it and the sound, that the air would get pushed down, generate the whole sound and all that sort of stuff. But these things, I remember seeing one of those, but in a snare drum format at a local drum shop back in probably 83, 84. Now, by that time, I'd only been learning drums for about a year and a half. And they had it. As soon as you open up the door, they had this pearl snare drum with a rototom on top. And same drum head on it. And I was kind of intrigued by it. And there was a stick on the thing, and I played it, and it sounded terrible. It just didn't sound great. But I didn't know they made tom-tom versions of the same thing, and Alex put that in that setup of that kit that he used on the World Invasion tour. So whether he played any of that stuff or whether it was just for looks, I reckon he played it. You know, especially the rototom sound became really prominent later on too, especially in the 1984 album era and tour. Yeah, so that's the black and white stripe. That's the Fair Warning tour kit.
Yeah.
And same principle again.
He flex too on those.
He had them on those two, and it was just remarkable. That I just can't. How do you think of this sort of stuff? He must have just conjured up. Was it an accident, or I'm not really sure. If someone knows.
Yeah.
How Alex
we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did the live right here, right now, where his kits got bigger and bigger and bigger, taller and more extravagant. And finally in 93, Eddie said, "Hey, it's hard for me to see you.
Yeah.
And it's hard for Alex to see the band." So they actually scaled it down. But I think the whole thing has to do with just part of the show. He just wanted to, since he wasn't out front, he wanted to be bigger than everyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously in the studio, you know, his stuff's a quarter of that size.
Oh, totally. I mean, you know, when you're in the studio, you just kind of grab what you kind of need, you know, pretty much, you know, and then slap everything together for that particular tune or what have you. Then you would expand upon that if needed. So I thought so that one was reinforced with the that snare drum that he's using there. Apparently that's the Rosewood Atama snare that he had. He would always rotate a couple of snare drums that he either the Rosewood or the Ludwig Supraphonic, which I have one here, which I'll get to in a moment.
And Jerry, before you get going, we talked about this too. They used to put a garbage can next to his kit back when he used to drink. He would drink so much beer that he would just go to the bathroom in the garbage can. And at the end of the night, someone would have to go dump that thing.
Oh, my God. What a gig.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now, Simon and I were talking about that and whether that was actually true or not. So clearly it went down.
Yeah, just let me know, Jerry, when you want me to stop showing the pics if you want to actually go through some of your kit there. That's no problem.
That's all good, man.
So,
and that era too.
Photos I've never seen. It's so cool.
Yeah, go back to the one before, Andrew, just briefly, because of that tour. That's apparently it's when he would set the gong on fire.
On fire, yeah.
And he incorporated, which was a John Bonham thing that apparently he did in concert as well. But and we've seen that Oakland gig where Alex is bashing away on the gong, and his hair gets cinched. So apparently that used to happen a lot.
Oh,
yeah. So,
lighter fluid. He would use lighter fluid.
Yeah, lighter fluid. You know, basically a Jimi Hendrix trick. You know, so set the whole damn thing on fire and hit it, and off he went. But if you go to the next kit, really intrigues me. Yeah. This one here Okay, so they call it the church organ kit. Now, if you kind of go onto the picture there, Andrew, you notice that there's a whole bunch of pipes coming out of his bass drum.
Yeah, that looks really cool.
So apparently the piping, because it's cut at different lengths and attached to the front
It's
head.
like a Gatling gun.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah.
What he used to do with his sound guy, with all the gigs, was they would mic not only the front of the bass drum, but also the batter side of the bass drum as well. So they would combine essentially 4 different microphones on the for his double kicks. But the piping, apparently, depending on where you would put the mic, would produce different frequencies depending on the length of the piping, which kind of makes sense. It would produce a different pitch and tone. So you can see from that picture, bass drum on the right has got a mic in one place, and then the bass drum on the left is slightly higher or somewhere else. So they obviously figured out which ones work the best in that scenario. And it was around.
That is ridiculous. I have never heard of that in micing a bass drum ever.
No. Nor have I seen anything like that since. And it was around that time when Alex was introduced PA horns in the front of his bass drums. Yep. Now, I'd seen pictures of this stuff, and I thought it was just from a visual point of view. Oh, actually, before we get to that, that's a really good photo, Andrew. Can you just zoom in on that? Just the next one.
Oh, okay. Hold on, brother.
Yeah, man.
This one here.
You're doing a great job, by the way, man. It's fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
Right. So it says to the right of him, that's the first appearance of his Simmons drums.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right there.
So is that one of the earliest appearances in a photo, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was that tour where he really started diving into that area of electronics. So that would have been 82. Yep. About 82. But also you notice above the Simmons drums, he's got those very pitched toms too. The roto toms, half roto toms, half.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a real kind of significant photo or landmark as far as where he was heading with the roto toms and the electronic drums, which I find, and also obviously the cowbell was there too for playing stuff like Hear About It Later and all those sort of great tunes that had some of the cowbell stuff in there. Right. This is the one with the PA horns attached to his bass drums. Now, I always thought that they were just looked for aesthetic reasons.
Me too.
No, apparently they were hooked up electronically to whatever, and again they were joined up by piping. You can see where Andrew's got the arrow. There's another bit of piping which connects all.
Hey, Gerry, can I just quickly say, when I was young and watching footage of Alex Van Halen playing, where he had his kick drums hooked up with like huge piping, my tiny 13-year-old brain just couldn't even comprehend the reason why. I just knew it had to be something like NASA, like in the movie E.T., where there's like the piping between all the rooms, and I didn't even know why, but I just thought that's how amazing Alex Van Halen is that the kick drum air is connected by like isolated oxygen NASA piping.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so cool. It's so cool. So those horns were that were attached to those bass drums were legit.
Wow.
That stuff was coming.
Lansing horns. I showed a photo of them. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that one. So that was something similar to what Alex had in his bass drum. So if somebody out there can kind of tell me how that would work on a bass drum, whether it's triggering something to, I don't know. I got no idea how that would work. And and I'd love to hear how that would sound, because apparently it would just give you all this high end to the kick. So matching that with.
Didn't he have an electronic?
I don't know if he was using it. I'm not sure if he was using that. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know if he was triggering sort of those bass drum sounds through those horns. I don't know. This is the whole mystique about Alex that I love. It's just like he's everything that he's done just keeps you keeps you guessing, you know. I just thought that was a real unique thing. So the sound guy would obviously mix bass drum sounds with the batter side, the inside, and also the horn as well. So you can only imagine the size of the mixing desk that was just dedicated to Alex's drum sound.
Yeah.
It would have been huge. I reckon they might have had to piggyback a couple mixing desks together.
I would have thought in the early 80s, you would need to actually piggyback 2 live consoles, one for the drums and one for the rest.
Yeah.
All right, I got it. Are you ready?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Alex's kit in '86 for the 5150 tour featured Ludwig shell housing, Simmons electronic drums, and 2 bass drums, 3 rack toms mounted in front, 2 lower toms on his right. It also contained 2 acoustic toms between 13 inches and 14 inches, respectively, along with an acoustic 20-inch Ludwig floor tom. His snare was a rosewood tama measuring 6.5 inches deep.
Yeah.
He used pasted 2002 series cymbals, including a 20-inch China, 3 20-inch crashes, and a 24-inch ride, a 15-inch sound edge hi-hat, and a 40-inch gong. All hardware was made by Ludwig. It doesn't talk about an effort to be able to get a double-headed and single-headed bass drum sound, a large orange-colored vacuum hose was run between the 2 bass drums. The idea for the sound man at each venue to have the option of picking the kind of bass drum sound that he wanted. It didn't quite work as planned, though, as there really wasn't enough airflow go through the tube to make the sound bass drum sound.
Yeah,
I guess it really doesn't talk about the
horn. Speaker. Yeah, but that whole principle of joining those bass drums together with a piping going from one, you know, like on the 5150 video.
That's what you'll get, Simon, out of every tour. It'll give you all that type of detail.
Man,
that's so cool. You know, I'm very excited, Kurt. Thank you.
So I think that whole principle, it's all about pushing air. I think Alex was probably hell bent on like, how much air can I push out of these bass drums, and you know that whole principle of the accordion thing. You know, actually, come to think of it, around that time there was a drum company that made drums that
look at that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But there was maybe you got the inspiration from this drum company that made toms and bass drums where the actual bottom head would scoop out. So it was actually the bottom. So imagine this being like facing this way. So you play here, but then it would just like that. I think the drums were called staccato drums. I think.
Right.
And they didn't last very long, but apparently they projected like nobody's business. So maybe that was sort of the idea Alex had kind of latched onto. So that's the
on those drums looks like Brad's jeans in the 2000s.
One thing I want to say, I've been sitting here fascinated in silence, but I'm seeing a similarity in themes with Ed's drum kits as with what with Alex's drum kits is what Ed did with his guitars.
Yep.
Innovation.
You know, isn't it? I think for a lot of us, we would not have seen some of these photos and had some of this information before. I mean, certainly a lot of this stuff is even new to me. And it is very clear that these 2 brothers were cut from the exact same cloth because, I mean, I don't know any other drummers of any style of music that were testing the boundaries of the sonics of drums the way Alex was.
100%.
Yeah.
Good point.
And you know what? There was a great photo you showed before, which was Alex like half turned around, like with a big smile on his face. And it also occurred to me that one of the things that unites these two, apart from obviously their blood, is that they were, no, it wasn't that one. Go back a bit further. The Van Halen smile, you know?
That
one.
There,
that one. Now, that's Ed finishing a lick, throwing out his pick, and just winking, you know?
Yeah.
And there is a joy with these brothers that either their father instilled into them or that just music generally did when they were young kids, that they brought to everyone. And I think that's part of what the Van Halen magic was, apart from the lights and the pyrotechnics and the loud drums and the loud guitars and the flamboyance of the singers. It was just the joy of music, you know. And I think that a lot of bands hit the stage, and they hit the stage trying to kind of almost like prove how good they were. The Van Halens were never out there to prove anything. They already knew it. They were out there to share the joy of music, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It comes through so much, you know. It just, you know, I mean, when we first saw the Live Without a Net video, that was, I to this day, every time I watch it, it just, you know, puts a smile on my face to know how much fun those cats were having around that time when, you know, when the band was almost, you know, going to fall apart. They've come back, you know, with a new singer and like with a new attitude, a new approach, new everything, you know, new sound. You know, that's great, Brad, that you picked that up, man, because I felt the same way with Alex. Like, yeah, he was obviously, you know, like what Simon said, they're cut from the same cloth, but you can tell Alex was really inspired by his bro, you know, and maybe vice versa too. You know, might have been, you know, maybe Alex brought something in and said, hey, Ed, check this out. And I mean, Ed's gone back to his workshop, whatever it is, and, you know, took the pickup out of his Les Paul and go, well, here, man, check this out, you know. You know, hey, what do you think this sounds better, you know? So I think that's pretty remarkable, you know.
They're both deep diving to get what the sound that was in their head or what they thought was basically appropriate for the band, what would work for them. They were always searching for something a little bit more than what was available.
And Helen agrees with you.
Yeah. And you know, that brings me to one of my questions, and I'll throw it in because I've been sitting here in silence, fascinated. But I want to know, Gerry, what is like a moment for you when you watch? I'm sure I've got the answer already in my head. When you watch Alex play, is there a particular performance that you can reference? And I think you just mentioned it anyway, that really inspires you. Like for me, I'll give you an example. When I watch the Live at Texas show, they did the free Live at one, and you see Alex playing, and he just looks like he's having so much fun. He's in his element. He's looking at his brother. He's looking around at the band. He's looking at the crowd. He's in charge, like he's leading the band. He's just holding it down, and he's having so much fun. I know he did that all through his career. I know that, but that one particular performance, and there's another one they did hang on, I'll let you tell me.
No, let's go. That's great.
I want you to tell me, what is there a 1, 2, 3 or multiple performances that you watch where you go, that's it, man?
Tough question, because there's so many great moments. Not only the live stuff, but the recorded stuff, because they tracked live, you know, pretty much. They were a live band.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is because not related to the recordings, just like a live performance.
Yeah.
When you're visually looking at Alex going for it, like that Texas one, that live free gig they did in Texas, for example. First time I watched that, I could not take my eyes off Alex.
Yeah.
They all looked so happy and having fun. There was a good time for the band. Sammy was on fire. Singing, you know, they were just having fun. Ed was just playing like, you know, he was smiling from ear to ear the whole time. They're all hugging each other. But Alex just looks like he's just leading that band. He was in his element. He's sitting around the start of, when they come in with Pound Cake and Judgment Day and those songs, and he's just, man, he's leading them. He's having so much fun. There's one spot in that performance where Sammy's on the PA stack. He's right up the top. Yeah. He can't get down. And he goes, what do you guys want to do? And Alex just starts Panama.
Oh, yeah. There you go. That's right.
I used to play it live because he just wanted to play, man. You can tell that's, So that to me, I can see the joy that Alex used to have is up there with his brother. They're all brothers, I guess, but blood brother, watching him. That performance warms my heart to watch that. I mean, is there a particular one? I'm guessing Live Without a Net.
You'd be guessing right, only because it hit me when I first saw that. That was pretty much the first time I'd seen Van Halen play live. That was we didn't have access to the internet back then, so that was my first. And I remember I think I borrowed the VHS tape from the video library and I dubbed it. I couldn't afford to buy it, so I dubbed it, right? So the generation thing, it was like second generation, and I wore that bad boy out until I, bought it on DVD when it was released.
Pirated.
I know. I got away with it. Shh, don't tell anyone, Andrew. That left a lasting impression. I love because I've never seen the band play live. Never seen them play live, and so that gig, when they start with One Way to Rock, I actually thought that was a Van Halen song that I didn't know that was a Sammy Hagar song.
So for years.
I had no idea, And so just hear him coming out. Eddie holds that note. Yeah, and you hear in the background. It's like, my God, being pushed back. So that's that moment. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now, talking about it. So that moment. But then I've got to say, I found a bootleg back in the day of a VHS thing of the US Festival gig, the 1983 gig. I had that on video. And I remember when I bought it, I gave it to Simon. After I'd watched it up 10 times, I loaned it to Simon. And to this day, I think he's still got the VHS copy. So what I know, right? But what we actually did was I transferred it onto like a camcorder tape, like a high 8 video tape. And we used to, when we were on the road with Tommy, we used to take the camera, film tour, sound checks or whatever, But I could also hook this up to whatever TV was in the hotel room, and we would watch that gig, on a semi-regular basis. I reckon there's moments in that performance, even though they weren't at the top of their game because they were all fairly, I guess, inebriated is a word, quite politely. But there's moments, but there's a moment there where Alex and Eddie are jamming. There's a jam session there, and they drop hints of Girl Gone Bad in there too.
That's true.
So, I don't know why I keep going back to Girl Gone Bad, but it seems to be a little.
And you know what? Can I tell you something real quick, Jerry? Even with us putting together like our dream second set for the Corner Hotel show that we're going to do in January,
which Brad's going to help me load my gear in and out and all that. Oh, sorry. Sorry, man. I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding.
You know what? We're just going to have to get heaps of B-roll of Brad carrying everybody's stuff.
No, right.
Not at
Show
all.
up late and leave early, Brad.
Yeah. That's the ticket, man.
That's my style, Kurt.
2 minutes before the first set, and
you guys better be careful what you do with our Brad, because if he's not fit for the British Electric Blues show or the 5150 show, we're sending you guys some bills.
He'll be fine, man.
Love it. No, so I forgot the question now. After all of that, what was it, Jerry?
We're talking about the no, you interrupted. It was the US Festival, the jamming bit.
No.
Girl Gone Bad.
I'll Girl Gone Bad.
Yeah, second set of the Corner Hotel gig, which we haven't done yet.
But the thing is that every time we talk to people about our proposed order of songs and what we've cherry picked for the second half of the show, everyone's like, maybe there should be more singles, more hits, because you could probably you don't need to do Girl Gone Bad. And you know what? I'm sorry, but every real Van Halen fan, the one song they all talk about is Girl Gone Bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you could almost play that song without vocals. You could play it as a rhythm section, and it would be like some incredible 7-minute jam.
Yep.
So I mean, can I just say that I reckon Girl Gone Bad is probably one of my favorite Roth era Van Halen songs. Me
too. And like what Gerry was saying earlier about how the way that it's not swung, but it feels swung is strange, and that's why I just think it has so many beautiful things about it that are unique. And so, look, there's no other hard rock band in the 80s that wrote a song like Girl Gone Bad. That's why you have to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I'll be disappointed if you guys don't play it.
No, we're gonna play it. My only disappointment is that the second half of the show won't be long enough to include all the other non-singles that we would love to play, but unfortunately we'd get lynched. So it is what it is. But yeah.
So just continue on from Brad's question with the highlights and things like that. So that's the live, and I love Right Here, Right Now. I thought that was I know a lot of it was they went back and redid a lot of stuff. Did they actually go back and redo Alex's drums on that? Did they do that, or did they keep what Alex played?
Allegedly, they did.
I don't know.
They actually re-recorded Alex's parts.
I would find that apparently so, but I still to this day am baffled how they managed to do that.
Yeah,
according to Sammy Hagar, they did.
Wow.
Okay, you say they did?
Sammy Hagar said they did. He said Alex and Eddie were in the studio and they had nothing better to do but retrack everything. But yeah,
I still to this day question that because I think Sammy wrote a lot of that when he was bitter at the Brothers. So I still to this day question a lot of that because when you watch it, I would find that would be extremely difficult to I mean, some of Ed's parts he's not redoing. That it's what he played on the night. You can see it. Obviously, there's snippets of two nights, but like his guitar solo.
I agree.
How do you mix it?
Yeah, I agree. And the spill factor from a drumming point of view to re-record drums that's been recorded in a massive auditorium like that.
Also, could I just offer that if you're not playing that stuff to a click live, replacing drums in the studio after the event, I'd have to say it'd be almost impossible.
You'd almost have to play along to what he originally played literally play along to it.
But you would, but the problem is that even if you did that, there's no way you could pocket the playing identically for 2 hours. There's just no way.
100%. 100%.
I agree.
Well, I'm not agreeing with them, Brad. I'm kind of up in the air as well, but Sammy did say when he redid the vocal tracks, they had it up on a video monitor, and he was watching himself as he was redoing the tracks. But
Kurt, with the Little River Band stuff, I had to do that with a classical guitar solo, and they had it up on a screen, and I had to replay a free time Spanish flamenco solo. Note for note, and it took a long time. But when you're mimicking it to the screen, you can do it. But I think it's one thing to do it as the lead singer, and it would be another thing to do it as the drummer, where there's no click and the time is moving. I don't know. I just feel like the whole thing would turn to crap if you tried to do that as the drums. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I think you guys raise an interesting point there because the Rolling Stones have been kicked in the guts for doing bits and pieces on Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, but only the guitar. It was only the guitar apparently that was overdubbed. They couldn't have, So I think this is an interesting debate and discussion, and it's something that Van Halen fans like. I don't think that
Bushnell was at both of those shows.
Yeah, so I don't think that. I don't think that they redubbed the drumming. I think the drumming was pretty much live. That's my opinion.
So, G. Bushnoff, you were there at both those shows. You've seen the DVD or VHS. Would you say live it sounded different than the VHS, or did it sound the same? See what he says.
Okay.
I'll give him a drum roll.
You should have given your own drum roll when we dropped you in. I'm disappointed you didn't do that, Jerry.
You should have done your own intro.
That'd be just too tacky. Come on, man.
No, but that would have fitted in well on this show.
Oh, man. That's funny.
So what's the answer? Did you come back with anything?
I said yes.
Sounds the same? Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay. Where you go?
That's good. There you go.
I mean, look, I mean, when we did the show on Right Here, Right Now, I personally did a fair bit of research, and the shows around that I could find, even just audio from those shows, are very similar. They're like, if there was a massive contrast, I'd go, yeah, they re-recorded it somehow. But imagine that they would go and re-record all the drums, all the bass, all the guitars again, maybe fix little bits. But Simon, you're quite savvy in your studio, for example, and you're a producer, and you've been through this process before.
I have been through the process, and in my experience, if you keep the live drums, you can actually pretty much replace any single other instrument on top of that, because a musician will always be listening to the drums when they replay them. But if you try and replay the drums to something that's not at a click, I've personally never encountered that as an option. I just think that's you're going to encounter way too many problems. But if the gig was played to a click, then that's different. But I just don't think Van Halen would have played it to a click.
I don't think they did. Yeah. But the one thing I know from my experience is probably very limited compared to yours, Simon, is that you can fix drums in the studio a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's very important. Like if there's one tiny little thing, you can maybe quantize a little bit, like adjust things with the record a bit. To re-record like a live performance that's been done on drums, geez, you'd have to be pretty darn good to get it exact.
See, I don't hear. Sorry to interject, but I don't hear Alex's playing being messed with on that Right Here, Right Now thing.
Neither do I. No,
I don't hear it. So, when he's playing to something that he's clicked, like the only song that they had that was sequenced was what? When It's Love, Jump, Dreams, when they have to do it. That's around that time that was sequenced. So
here's a good question. So let's take the songs that would have been done to a click, which are the ones with keyboards, right? Okay, no problem.
At that time, though, right? During that era, right now.
At that time, any of the songs with keyboards would have no doubt been done to a click. I've got no problem with that. So how did Sammy know when he was in the studio that Alex wasn't just replacing the songs with keyboards?
Yeah, that's true.
Because maybe he replaced the drums only on the songs with a click, which would be the keyboard songs, but on all the rest he didn't.
Yeah. Oh. Well, if he did do that, he did a great job because it sounds and it looks sort of seamless to me. But they might have had time to do it too.
It's easy enough to replace your own parts. Yeah. But it's easy enough to replace your own parts when it's your parts because you play the way you play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you guys on this show when we did this.
But without getting too bogged down into it, I can see maybe that they decided to replace the whole rhythm section to the stuff that was done to a sequence, which would be the keyboard stuff.
Yeah,
sure.
But it would be almost literally impossible to keep the pocket feeling good with anything that wasn't done to a click. There's just no way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
100%.
So maybe the real answer is Sammy witnessed Alex replacing 1 or 2 songs that were done to a click, but not the whole show. But at the time, as you said, Brad, Sammy was writing his book and he was kind of bitter at the boys. So,
that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, that's a great observation there, Brad. So I think we're all sort of unanimous in that.
Yeah, I mean,
the other thing too, Brad, is Sammy said he went through and did the whole show in one take. Took him all day, or
Yeah, I can. But
they used all of it. How much of it did they use?
Yeah, wow.
Did they use the whole thing, or just piece it together for certain songs? Who knows? In
Oh,
his
look,
mind, he did the singing and he left.
That's kind of my opinion too, because what they would have had to do then is vocally, they can drop vocals out, punch them in, move them around, make it all work. So they may have used some of the actual live,
correct,
and then punched in, punched out the off notes that he hit, because he was, he was hitting off notes here and there, but every singer does. So,
and the other thing which you can do now and would have been able to do then is, even if you didn't touch up all the vocals, there's a couple of bad notes. You can actually just zoom in on those notes. You don't have to auto-tune a whole performance. You can just zoom in on a couple of notes. So the truth is that in post-production, you can be as minimal or as maximal as you want. I just don't believe that you would bother replacing drums on things that weren't done to a click, because you could never recapture the pocket. That's the one thing you could never do. And as far as the vocals and everything else, yeah, I could believe that Sammy could look to a screen and replace his vocals in mostly one day. Maybe they didn't even use all of it, though. Maybe they only used a few bits, So the truth is, we'll never know.
Can I just say something? If the drum tracks needed replacing, I'm sure, just my personal opinion, they would just go and do another couple of gigs and record them, even though it cost a lot of money. Because in my opinion, you couldn't capture that.
But then that poses the problem of tempos. Like one night, Alex might have played.
You just can't. You can't.
So risky. I mean, we've done gigs. Simon and I have done gigs, where we do maybe 3 shows in a row with an artist, and then things start to feel a little bit differently in that second show. By the 3rd show, everything's really comfortable. Well, if you're going to cut and paste stuff that you did from the first show into the 3rd one, or vice versa, it's going to be one hell of a mess if I didn't play to a click track to make sure everything was rock solid. And that way, Thursday night's gig, we can use this drum fill that I played in, Saturday night's gig or whatever it is. That's plausible. You can do that. That's easy. But there's no, like you said, Brad, I don't think it's so hard for them to kind of go, whoever's putting up the idea of they grabbed another gig or they recorded another gig and used that, man. And we're talking around 91, 92 when that.
That's when the technology wasn't quite what it is.
No, it wasn't. The technology wasn't there.
There was no Pro Tools. There was no hard drive, hard disk technology. It was still probably.
It was still pretty.
ADATs might have been the same. Reel-to-reels were still there and all that's multi-tracking, but maybe ADATs might have been around. But
Pro Tools was in its baby stage back then,
exactly. So I think we're all pretty much still using the old notator Atari, for using MIDI. I think that's where that was at around that time, So I think the Right Here, Right Now one had some great Alex moments in there. Him and Mikey on that recording, on that video, as well as the album, the Carnal Knowledge album, was probably one of the first. There you go. One of the first. I think everyone was thinking that the first time we actually heard Mikey's bass being put in the mix, and what was really obvious about the first albums, as you guys have discovered have talked about in the past, that Mikey's bass wasn't quite as prominent because it affected Ed's tone and all that sort of stuff. Would I be correct in that sort of assumption?
So, Gerry, I heard that too.
Yeah, But before you go on, my point being is that when we got those stems, and I could isolate Alex's drums and Mikey's bass. I did a mix of the Van Halen album here by myself with just those stems and crank the bass up. It's a whole different record when you crank the bass up. Yeah, it's a whole different. It feels different. It obviously sounds different, but it feels different, and it's great. It's not like it's any better or worse. It's just it was great before, and it's great when you kind of crank the bass up. Because you kind of really hear Alex and Mikey connecting rhythmically, and I think, and then that right here, right now, DVD was, kind of consolidated that thing. Hearing Mikey's bass playing, like when he pumps like in pound cake, he's pumping 16th notes, man. He's so bang on with that stuff. And even the footage I've seen him play with the circle, where he's playing that sort of stuff, he's relentless. I don't think Mikey gets the credit that he kind of deserves. No, he does not.
Pleasure Dome. Keith's got a comment in the chat. Pleasure Dome.
Pleasure Dome. Yeah. My God. Gerry, you're exactly right. And I think I can speak for all 5 of us on this chat, but also all the people in the chat comments, that Michael Anthony, I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone says. All these things about Ed replacing bass parts and stuff, it might have happened on like one song here and there, but as like a holistically, I just don't believe it, because I've heard the isolated tracks of all the early Van Halen bass parts, and they're not played by a guitarist; they're played by a bass player. Because I play bass on all my own songwriting stuff, I can tell that it's a guitarist playing bass.
Yeah,
there's the sound of a bass player playing bass, and all of us know it. And they've got their own touch, their own feel, their own pocket, and it is not Ed playing bass on that stuff. The other thing is that I know really, really well, and I'm lucky to call him a friend, is Michael Ace Baker, who does sound for Sammy Hagar, Chickenfoot, Dream Theater, Colin Hay, all these different people. And I would know if Michael Anthony was not the absolute real deal, I would know it from him. And I'm sorry, but I've never heard a word of that. And the fact that Sammy Hagar chooses him as his left-hand man is all I need to know. There's just, I'm sorry, you listen to a song like, one of the songs we're going to do in the second half of our show at the Corner Hotel is, Gerry, what is it? The funk one.
Push Comes to Shove.
Push Comes to Shove. Thank you.
I was just about to bring that up. Go ahead.
Now, I'm sorry, but anyone put on some headphones and listen to the bass part in Push Comes to Shove. That is not a guitarist playing that bass line. That's a bass player playing that bass line. And it's all fingers, and it's all 70s disco for dum 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 dum.
Yeah, exactly.
And as genius as Edward was, I'm sorry, it's just not something a guitarist would play. That's something a bass player would play.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
For me, brother.
Hey, real quick, guys. I hate to interrupt you, but I got to do a quick drawing here.
We'll talk about all of that.
Sorry, Kurt's got to go? Or?
No.
Yeah.
Andrew, you want to isolate me? I got to do a quick drawing before we get too late. I got some information plugged into the computer here.
Hold on, guys.
Ooh.
What you got there, brother?
All right, we're going to do a drawing for a 5150 pick before it gets too late. So I got everyone in the chat over the last 45 minutes in the system.
All right.
Brad, how many times should I hit the shuffle button? Give me a number.
3.
3.
Yeah, 3's good.
All right, here we go. G. Bushnoff.
Woo, buddy!
Hooray, baby!
The G.
All right, G. Message me either on Instagram or YouTube depending on what socials you have, and I'll get your address and send you a pic.
There you go.
Or shoot me your
Cheers,
cell phone number or whatever.
Right. Right.
We try to give, since we got these picks, we're going to try to give one away a show.
Oh, that's a great thing.
Gerry, have you got some gear there that you want to show and talk through us? Is this a good opportunity to do that? Can we isolate you? Is that okay?
Beautiful segue you got going on there, man. It's great. Smooth. No, it's great. So
awesome.
So in our sort of endeavor to bring the fair warning thing, the initial gig that we did at the guitar show, you know, Simon and I pretty much went down that rabbit hole of trying to emulate the sounds that both Alex and Eddie kind of created for that record.
Yeah, because the brief was, which we stupidly agreed to, how possible is it to play the whole first record note for note on all 4 instruments? And we were like, oh man, okay, sure, no worries. Yeah. And so that was the brief. Yeah.
So that was a brief, and you know that opened up a lot of things to a lot of listening and trying to emulate, trying to capture that sound. And you know, the first purchase that I did, I got for that gig was Alex's ride cymbal that he used. Not on those albums, but he did use a fairly big ride, like a power ride sort of thing. And so I managed to find one of his signature ride cymbals. Well, he's only got the one signature ride cymbal, but this bad boy's a 24. But what I'm going to show you first, just to give you some sort of a scope of how big the 24 is. This is a regular 20-inch cymbal. So wow. Pretty big, right?
Yep.
Yeah. One of my go-tos, whatever. You know, it's really, really nice. Great, versatile cymbal. And in the endeavor of finding of choosing a ride cymbal for that gig or for that to emulate that record, I've got about 6 or 7 or 8 different ride cymbals, and I thought at least one of them might be close. And I failed miserably. It just didn't have the character that I needed to capture that sound. So fast forward to, I find this thing online. Somebody's selling a signature Alex Van Halen pasty cymbal. So this is this bad boy. It's huge, man. Now. So I remember when I got this, I was doing a gig. So I swung by the guy's house and picked it up, played it, picked it up, took it to my gig, and I was doing a sort of fusion, like a pop gig at a jazz club at a well-known.
It's massive.
It's huge, isn't it? I haven't got a case to put this in because it's so big. I need to buy a case to put this in, right?
How heavy is that thing?
Yeah, a couple kilos, I would imagine. It's kind of, it's actually quite bendy. If I can kind of do that, it's actually quite flexible because of its sheer mass. It's not a heavy ride. It's somewhere in between a heavy and a medium and a heavy, which
I've heard that before.
Hey, hello. There you go. I'd give you a boom tish, but my hands are tied, mate. So I remember taking this to the sound check to this gig that I was doing, and I couldn't wait to put it on the kit. And the first thing I noticed was when I put it on the cymbal stand, the whole cymbal just went, and just started hanging over its edge, right? Yeah. And then I played it. And I went obviously I played it before I bought it, but I played it at this gig at Soundcheck, and it was that sound. It was that washy sound that you hear on You Really Got Me. And once I remember, I think I rang you, Simon, or sent you some pictures saying I've got it. And then when I took it home, I isolated the You Really Got Me drum track and then listened to the tone of the ride cymbal, the pitch.
Yep.
This one, I was almost, it's just like almost like a semitone lower, just a fraction lower.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me was the wash the sound that it makes. I don't know if you can, how well this is going to translate. I mean, I tried it before with the Girl Gone Bad, but this bad boy is that you could just play a normal eighth note pattern as you would for You Really Got Me or any of the ride cymbal songs that Alex used it for. It just gives you that sound.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It is such a gorgeous. Now, the other thing that really kind of struck me was, Alex used really heavy sticks too. Like he used 2B drumsticks, which are like I use a 5B, which are fairly thick and heavy, but he's obviously gone the step up and used heavier sticks. But the great thing I love about this cymbal is that I can use a lighter stick and it sounds completely different. And I've used this thing on some lighter sort of playing on recordings, and it sounds completely different. So this is what it sounds like with the, like if I'm playing You Really Got Me or something like that. And with the lighter stick, I'm going to play the same velocity.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's completely different.
It's completely different. It's completely different. So not only have I been using it for Alex's thing or the fair warning thing or anything rocky that I have to record here in the studio, this thing comes out and slays. I just as a side note, I use this thing to record. I used this thing last year to record the pre-game entertainment on the AFL for Wolfmother. Oh. So I recorded the what's that Joker and the Thief song? They had to re-record it again.
Yeah.
So I pulled this bad boy out and used it, and it's just to hear it being played back for your TV was pretty cool actually, and I couldn't tell anyone that it was me apart from now. Sorry, the guy that mimed to the Wolfmother stuff. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so this cymbal is such a. It's actually not just a rock thing; it's quite a versatile thing. So that was the acquisition that I bought for the fair warning gig at the guitar show, but unfortunately I didn't have the right snare drum for that gig. So Simon, with the snare drum that I used, Simon was so great in the post-production of mixing that I actually had a drum that was a Ludwig snare drum, not quite as deep as what Alex has, but I used a certain type of head to put on there. I taped it up and I did that. And I remember recording some of it here. And I think I sent you, Simon, like a rough thing of like, You Really Got Me. I said, like, have a listen to this. It's pretty close. And, I mic'd up the bass drum with a 57. Yeah. I put 57s everywhere on the kit, to try and emulate the ride cymbal and the snare drum sound. And to Simon's credit, when I heard the mix of the gig, we kind of got it right. There was obviously something missing, and obviously the thing that was missing was that same snare drum. Either the rosewood or the acrylite, the Supraphonic, the 14x6.5. So Simon did an amazing job getting that sort of EQing it to the point where it sounded pretty close, and I was pretty happy with the result. But since then,
we now have.
I managed to invest. Invest is the word. In this. It's a reissue.
Look at that.
14x6.5, and I have a head on that which is not the one that you would expect to have on there, but it's a head that is very similar to the one that Alex used, the black dot one.
Yeah.
Only because I've got I'm endorsed by these guys, so I would try to promote any time their gear and stuff like that. So, but what I did do was underneath, Alex used wider snare wires, like more than 20 or 24. He would use 30. So I hot wired. You
hot wired your snares.
Yeah, I put some wider snare wires on there. And look, you can go berserk by purchasing wider ones. That will capture more of the make it more snary, if that makes any sense. So this thing sounds incredible. And I remember again when I took it home and played it. Even with the factory head that came with it, I just went, there's the sound, there's the tone, there it is.
Gerry, have you done the tape, or have you seen how Alex does the tape with the A? And
yes, absolutely.
Does that make a difference?
Oh yeah, totally. And actually, on that particular head that he used on some of that stuff, some of those albums, or live recordings,
right,
or concert tours, or whatever you want to call it. It dries up the snare drum a little bit. It kind of takes that ring, a little bit of the ring off, But like when I took this thing out of the box and had the factory head on it and tuned it up somewhat, I put it in here and played it. I was just gobsmacked, And it really comes down to if you want to really kind of emulate what Alex was doing. I mean, I'm never going to play like him, man. I'm never going to, it's Alex, right?
Well, so there's only one Alex in the same way there's only one Eddie. So that's right. You're never going to play exactly. Yeah.
So if I can kind of get if I can get the sonic aspect of it kind of close, I think we're on the right track. And we kind of did that on the guitar show gig. We definitely got that, especially you, Simon. My Lord, it's just incredible. I remember our first rehearsal when you brought all that gear out, and I'm just listening going, I've never heard anyone sound like this, trying to capture that sound. It's incredible. So that was whether you know it or not, we were kind of in competition a little bit to go, who's going to, kind of get this sort of thing happening, and I enjoyed the process of doing all that. So, but this baby, it's done hasn't done any gigs, obviously, because we're, in lockdown and what have you, but I've been doing a lot of recordings with it here at home. And when you A/B this snare drum with, let's say, another snare drum that I own, it's definitely got a tone of its own. Even when it's flat, even when there's no EQ on it, and you pull up the 57 microphone on it, it's got that thing there. So then it came down to obviously Don Landy EQing those drums a certain way, which and even the Rick Beato reference, when he goes, that is amazing. That is he.
I was going to ask if you'd watch that.
Oh, I love that, man. I love anything that guy does.
That Rick Beato thing about Alex's snare drum is a very cool YouTube video.
Deep dive, man. Deep dive.
Absolutely, too deep, I reckon, though. But he talks about the EQing. They tried a few different EQing settings, and he got it right. He says he didn't. I reckon he nailed it.
When he does the A/B, for me, for like a one-day kind of affair, I think they got it as close. It sounds really close to me.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. I think from the, really close. Yeah. And good on them for that, So I can, and also, like this snare drum, to me, the one track, there's heaps of tracks that he used them on, but the one was one of my favorite. It's So This Is Love.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So Simon knows. Right. So, you know, and it's cracking. The snare's like right up in the mix. Yeah. And you can hear the tone. The tone is this. It's this bad boy. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, what is it, like 8 bars later or something like that, somebody turns it down.
4 bars in, it goes flat.
You know, and all of a sudden, it's like, for me, it's like, oh, if you kept it at that level, it would have been like, it's just like it's got such a cracking snare drum sound to it. Like, the tone is perfect, the pitch is bang on, like it suits the track so well, right? Cool. So for me, that track, I'm sure there are others, but that to me epitomizes this snare drum, the way it sounds. You know, I'm sure there's heaps others. So actually, Andrew, if you can find the photo, which will lead really nicely into the electronic side of things, there's a photo of the snare drum with how it's gaffed up with a Simmons pad.
Cool. Look at that. What the?
I know. Yeah. I need to go forward, mate. Just keep going forward.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, no, don't apologize. It's all good, man. That's the OU812 kit.
Yep.
I can't believe it. Look at that kit.
Yeah, three setups, and that's obviously the right here, right now. We'll talk about that one in a second, but I want to get to the electronic.
The free.
Yeah, he had a free. He had a free to his bass drum. It's great. Yeah,
man,
I love that. Yeah,
baseball bat.
Yeah. Keep going. That's a great photo. Okay, that one there. All right. So that there is he's got one of the Simmons pads there with the snare drums. It's a super sensitive, so it's a little bit different to the one I've got. Right. But it's just, I believe it might be just as deep, I think. But that module right there, which has got VH2 written on it,
scratched into it, right? So is that the sound module?
Yeah, that's the I've got to get this right. The Simmons I had written down. It's the SDSV brain, right? So that thing was out in the early '80s.
And is that the thing that you see like during the Live Without a Net concert? You know, if you're watching during his drum solo, off to his left is a rack of knobs. Yeah. Is that what we're looking at?
That's what that is. And the VH2 is only that's the second one. He had 2 of them apparently.
Right. Okay.
One was a backup or what have you.
Yeah.
So in light of us doing the Corner Hotel gig where we're going to do, the second set's going to be a range of different songs. We wanted to do stuff off the 5150 record, which is all the brain, right? It's all that Simmons stuff.
Yeah.
So, again, I've gone down that rabbit hole where how am I going to I want to replicate those tom sounds. So what I investigated was the use of triggers, drum triggers.
Yep.
And so I bought a set of triggers. My good friends at Roland, who kindly gave me a super deal with this stuff, man. So this is what the Roland drum trigger looks like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So you got the foam, which
is that a little piece of foam or is it rubber or what's that?
Yeah, it's just a piece of sort of light foam which just sits on the drum head.
Okay.
And you got your pickup in there too. You can see the electronics that are in there.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that metal bit, in there, deep in there, you can just see it. All right. So these things attach. You can see I've got a couple hooked up already. There's one there, and one on the floor tom. So I bought 4 of these for the toms, and one for the kick drum, and I got a spare one for the snare drum. But Alex didn't trigger stuff off the snare. And then I needed something to trigger the sounds from. So I bought this device down here. It's a trigger module, and what this thing does is that not only does it have sort of your sort of all these drum sounds These are just sort of preview pads that you can play to hear what sounds you got coming through. So you can hear there's a whole bunch of everything. There's like everything on this machine.
Oh, cool.
Right? But what I wanted it to do was to have a machine where I could import sounds. So primarily, I wanted to trigger those Simmons sounds. So I found a website online that was selling original samples of the same module that Alex was running. So for $3 US, I downloaded it was about 40 something sounds that this module would produce, ranging from kick sounds to snare to toms. So what Alex would have, had to invest, which would have been sort of chump change really for those guys, but that would have been a couple of grand back in the 80s to pay for a module, and then the pads as well. I got for $3 US. I couldn't stop laughing how ridiculous that whole scenario was. So with that, I was like a little kid. So I got I downloaded the sounds. I put the sounds on a SD card. Put the SD card. Yeah, what was it again, Kurt? It's SDSV, I think it was called.
Yep.
I think. Yeah. So you take this, we take the sound, download it, whack that in the module, and I'm just going to crank this up a little bit.
Crank it.
Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that coming through?
Right, man.
Yeah.
I'll just go behind here a little bit, have a bit of a goof because
Do it.
I won't. I ain't gonna see. I haven't got to stand.
We're sick of hearing the sound of each other's voices.
And you can also do any sort of Phil Collins thing as well if you wanted to. But
The Hangover.
The intro to Good Enough, Hos?
Yeah.
Hello, baby. Then we're in, right? So it's got some adaptability with these triggers. I love it.
Dude, it sounds mad.
It does sound good.
It sounds all right, yeah?
Yeah, it sounds great.
And the great thing is, they're the tom sounds, and I can pitch adjust those to what Alex had on the records, which I haven't done quite diligently yet. But this is the
you know what they say, Jerry? Life's a pitch.
Hey, that's right, man.
Thank
you. And apparently this was the kick drum sound that he had as well.
Yep, sounds right.
So a mixture of that with this.
Oh, dude, that's going to be crazy.
And the ride cymbal.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy.
So it'd be a case for our sound guy to all he has to do is just drop the acoustic mics on the drum kit on the toms, and then bring in the module. And I think we're going to be close with you playing the Steinberger as well. Hey, man,
Yep. I do have the Steinberger with the trans trem ready to go. So there's going to be that as well. And it just occurs to me what'll be fun. Brad and I have been talking about doing a rig rundown as it gets closer to the show, in a rehearsal room or something.
Yeah,
we should do a drum rig rundown as well. I think that'll be fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'll be great when Brad helps me get in my 4 bass drums and
So Jerry,
sorry, man. I had to do it.
Jerry, my 9th birthday. My grandma gave me a Sony Walkman, and I had no tapes. And my brother gave me 5150. That was my very first album I've ever received.
Wow.
So hearing those drums, just brings me right back to when I was 9 years old. And that sound hits home to me.
Doesn't it?
The acoustic sounds of a regular drum kit are awesome, but that electronic drums, people kind of they give it a bad name and kind of beef on it a little bit. But to me, man, like I love it.
Oh, no, I love it too, man. And I hearing you say that, I just got goosebumps because I got the same reaction when I rigged this whole thing up and then imported those sounds that I downloaded. I couldn't stop laughing. I'm just thinking, this is crazy. If I was at a gig and saw someone do that, I'd be like, man, that's it. That's the sound,
It is the sound. It is the sound, Gerry. It's the sound of the 80s. We sometimes kick it in the guts a few times, but if you look at Clapton, also with the Journeyman album, he's got a lot of that stuff going on there too. It's just, it's full of it.
Yeah, even Clapton, when that August album, Andrew, where Phil Collins produced that.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite Clapton records, man, because Phil is another guy that's doesn't get as much credit as I reckon he deserves.
He's a genius, that guy.
In the drumming world and in the songwriting world and everything. Like, the guy did it all, right? That album catapulted Clapton back into the mainstream, and there was a certain sound attached to that record, and Phil had obviously played drums on that, but he got Nathan East, got Greg Philanganis, so he got some LA session guys who he knew to bring what they basically brought it. That's what they did, and that 80s sound is somewhat coming back a little bit. I hear it in certain productions of certain songs.
Yeah, I hear it in a lot of EDM and especially European stuff. Yeah.
Right, there you go. So, the use of like that real sort of gated sort of snare drumming thing with some reverb everywhere. A lot of the times, reverb's everywhere now.
Hey, Gerry, if you haven't, or if anybody listening hasn't, and you're dubious about that the 80s is back, listen, go on YouTube and just Google The Midnight and listen to any of their stuff. The Midnight. They're an incredible band and great songwriters, great tunes, but honestly, it sounds like you're in 1984.
There you go.
That's not a dig. I actually love their stuff, and I've got their album on vinyl, because I just think it sounds so damn good. But for anyone that doesn't doubt that the kids are loving the 80s, check out The Midnight.
Yeah, great. I'll check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man.
So I think all that stuff that was so obvious in the mid-80s and what those guys did, it's iconic now. It's just iconic. There's no way around. Sort of, for me, I could have gone, we'll just play good enough on the acoustic kit. It'll be good enough. It'll be all right. Nothing wrong with that. There'll be nothing wrong with that, right?
There'll be nothing wrong with it. But you know what, Gerry? If you play good enough on an acoustic kit, all I would say to you is, but you don't even have your license, Lisa.
Sorry,
that's an old weird science reference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So just getting these sounds, getting the gear, it was just like, for me, it's like icing on the cake a little bit. And now all I have to worry about is trying to play the damn stuff. So that's, and that's another sort of thing that I've been getting into for that second set, was pretty much transcribing those tunes, just so I can get a heads up or an insight into Alex's playing as it progressed out into that Sammy era. And the songs were different. Ed was writing different songs, different grooves, so Alex played a lot of some things which weren't what he played, wasn't what he played in the first batch of albums. You can hear the development in his playing. That's what I love about Van Halen, is that they all grew as musicians, man. It's like, I talk to San about this a lot, the influence that Alan Holdsworth had on Ed, I can hear that a mile. Like especially on the 1984 album, the again that in Top Jimmy, where he plays
that's a great example, Jerry. His licks as well is a very angular.
Yeah. So hearing that, and that was probably around the time when I heard that 1984 album. Obviously, 1984 I was 14, so I hadn't really, I was so listening to pop music, what was on the radio, a lot of jazz. My brother's a guitar player. I should mention he's a great guitarist. He got me into all these early great jazz guitar players like Barney Kessel, Herb Ellis, Joe Bass, Wes Montgomery. And the list goes on. It just goes on. So I was kind of listening to that as well as the Beatles, bands like Kiss, that my generation sort of stuff,
Yep.
But it wasn't when I heard Top Jimmy and that stuff. I kind of just went, where the hell is that coming from? And it wasn't too soon after that, probably a year later in 1985, when I discovered sort of fusion. In a word, jazz fusion, the Chick Corea Electric Band album, that tipped it off.
Yeah.
And then I went back and listened to Chick with, Return of Forever and all that sort of stuff. Listen to that. Yeah. And then inevitably I came across Alan Holdsworth, and that was the sound page out of the Guitar Player magazine that had Devil Take the Hindmost.
Oh yeah, great song.
So I remember playing that and hearing yeah. All right, this is different. And all of a sudden the solo hits, and I'm just like, I'm frozen looking at my turntable, going, which is the same reaction I had when I listened to the Chick Corea Electric Band album. I was like, what is this I'm hearing?
But bro, let me just tell you, like Devil Take the Hindmost, that's not that far away from Girl Gone Bad.
No, right? I know, right?
It's really similar,
Oh my Lord!
How many times have we said "Girl Gone Bad" tonight?
Yeah,
20.
too many, Kurt.
Yeah,
but look,
it's just a happy coincidence, I think, Kurt. But
Jerry,
I yes, Andrew.
No, it's Kurt.
Okay, sorry, man.
What would you say is your favorite era or album from
that's a good question,
Alex?
Yeah,
from the Van Halen. I'm a sucker for Fair Warning, man.
Yeah, good call.
I mean, I love everything they did, right? I mean, there's no denying that. I love it. It's great. But if I was going to reach down and play a record, Fair Warning is the one. It was the one that I played, when I heard that Eddie passed away. I put that on. That, and I think I put on 5150 as well, and just listen, because contrasting eras, The thing about Fair Warning, that really, it's so stylistically broad. It's got everything, man. It's got everything that I love about music, everything I love about rock and roll, everything I love about sort of the jammy side of things, the songwriting. The playing is incredible, man. The playing is so on point, man. It's ridiculous.
Here's a question for you, Jerry. So, how as guitar players, we might grab some tabs and use tabs as a guideline for playing a solo or for working out some chords for a song. If you can't pick up the chords naturally, I can't do that. So what does a drummer do when they're putting on Fair Warning? Do you go to drum tabs to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on? Do you just use your ears and just play along with it with your Walkman?
I'll show you what I do, man. I actually kind of write parts out. I write.
So you don't go on Google and try and find stuff. You just do it by ear.
No, I don't try and find any tab or any chart that's been written out, because I'd rather
discover it yourself.
Listen to it and write down what I think is going on, and and then just listen. I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. finding someone that's already written out the drum part. But half the time, they've not written it wrong. They may have written it right, but just looks wrong. Just the notation. Yeah, exactly right. So there's so much. It's almost like a case of Chinese whispers with that sort of stuff. Because if you look at someone's transcription and that's wrong, and they play it that, well, they're playing it wrong. And then somebody else, they might upload that thing on Instagram and go, and someone else looks at that. I mean, it just keeps going, right? So it goes from
changes every time. Yeah,
it changes.
It's true.
There's nothing wrong with that. But what I do, in its basic form, like I wrote out the whole first album, right? So, but I didn't do it. I did it in a way where it was like just pen and paper or paper and pencil, so I could just easily rub things out and change it and notate it a little bit differently. But I'm just trying to find something which is not as messy as what what they are. Hang on.
While you're looking for that, I'm just going to do a quick shout out to everybody for joining us. I hope you guys have all been fascinated like my co-host and I have been. We just have some great respect for everything that Jerry's been sharing with us. Thank you, brother.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome, man.
And it's all with respect to the amazing and not often talked about, not enough talked about Alex Van Halen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Like something like "I'm the One." Okay, so obviously those, the first 8 bars is all Simon. Wow. Was it time?
It's exciting even just listening to you sing it.
Oh sorry, man. Yeah. So things like the fills. There's some fills I've written. Sorry, wrong hand. Yeah. Oh, that bit here. That bit there is the This was the that bit. Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful quarter note triplets that
Alex, isn't it?
Stuff that him and Mikey played. So that's the extent I go to. I don't know what anybody else does. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The whole thing that matters is that making that sound like the way it should. So if you want to learn it, I always tell students that don't get so hung up on like I've got to write everything out to learn it or whatever. Everybody's different in the way they learn stuff, and that's the one thing I've discovered a lot with teaching. You get different people, they have different methods. They excel at maybe the visual side of things. You show them and they can play it right back. Other people, like you might write it out and they're just looking at you like you've got a you a third eye, looking at you in the forehead, kind of go, I don't understand, So right. So for me, it's the connection of both. So I would rather, I could probably listen to a track and go, yeah, I can get it down, play it. But for this stuff, I really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of like even the ghost notes that Alex was playing, which didn't come out on the recording, but you can definitely hear it on the
isolated stuff.
A classic example of that is right. So on the recording, there's no hi-hat. There's nothing going on. It's just the vocals. Yeah. On the actual isolated track, Alex is playing. He's playing that cymbal thing.
You know what that is, and that's the exact hi-hat pattern from, if anyone knows, Satriani's Satch Boogie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always thought that. I've always thought.
Yeah, totally. So it's as far as Andrew, like I can totally relate to like when you want to learn something, the reading side of it, it can hang you up, and it hangs a lot of people up. But with today's sort of technology and methods, as long as someone's showing you the right way, I think you're going to be okay. You'll be fine. And then all that matters from then is you play it the right way, and it sounds legit.
Yeah,
that's all that matters. No one cares how you learned it. No, you don't go on stage and go, I'm going to play it. This is. I've learned it. I've learned it by doing this. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So if someone says to you, how did you go about it? Then I'm happy to say, I wrote it out and I had some cheat sheets on the side. Some of that stuff I can't remember. It's so stylistically what Alex did.
Oh, okay, good point. Okay, and because obviously you're like Simon, you want to get that part of it right, because as we've already said, we've done a show with Simon and we were blown away by his versions of that album. And, we did give big shout-outs to you guys too, and to your lead singer as well, because, that whole gig just blew us away. I've got to say this again. I remember messaging Brad and saying, holy shit, bro, have you seen this? And Brad replies back, I was there.
Bastard.
Jerry.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just want to say this, the fact that you and Simon have gone through and done this deep diving and tabbed out and listened and applied what you've learned as a drummer and as a guitarist to reproduce something that you guys feel is the best that you can do individually, but as a band, because you love the music, it's just awe-inspiring. It just blows a guy in Hamilton, New Zealand away. Just blows me away, bro. I just can't believe that you guys are on here with I'm being serious.
It's great. I'm digging every moment.
Thank you, bro.
So much fun. And thank you, Andrew, for those words. And like Simon and I did it because we wanted to do it. It's not to get any sort of anything back from anyone. If it's either here it is, you dig it or you don't. And I don't really. Either way, I'm not really fussed. I mean, I've read some of the comments on the YouTube thing, which are absolutely hilarious, and the majority of them are really positive and just heartfelt comments. But I've been described as what's with the dentist on the drum kit. That's cool.
But Jerry, YouTube proves there's weirdos, dickheads, and drongos in the world. If you didn't ever think there were any, go to YouTube and read YouTube comments.
I've been called every name in the book.
So we all, Kurt. I mean, if I had $5 for every time someone said on the YouTube video, we didn't know that U2 could play like Eddie Van Halen, then I'd be rich, But
yeah.
But
what's the Edge doing there?
And we've either got Kurt Russell or Elvis Presley singing, and then Jason Boyer, our bass player. The most he gets, either fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, is and they found some guy from the bar on bass.
I love you, Jace. You know that, man. But
you got to laugh at it. And here's the thing: is going back to what Jerry said. I think the thing that we could never have planned it this way is that we didn't even know that show was going to be live streamed and multi-camera filmed and So when we went in to do it, as part of our contract, that stuff wasn't even in it. And it would be easy to be upset about the fact that all of a sudden we found out that it was like live on Facebook and all of those things. But the universe works in very mysterious ways. And as it turned out, one whole channel, the left channel of the audio, didn't come across on the live stream.
That's right, because I remember ringing you up saying, hey, man.
Because Jerry rang me and he said, hey, dude, we're on Facebook, except for that there's only one channel. So if you think Ed was shitty, that his guitar was mixed on one side on the first record, we are only one side of our live stream, so which is kind of funny.
It's killer, isn't it?
But why the universe works in mysterious ways is it was unsatisfactory enough that it gave us the opportunity for me to go back to the Melbourne Guitar Show people and say, listen, we just can't keep this up online because there's only one half of the audio and this and this and this. So give me all the camera angles and give me the multi-tracks and I'll remix it and re-edit it, and then we'll put it up for everybody to see the way it should be. And so that's what everyone has seen now. And but the truth is that did they not film it and live stream it, that gig would never exist online.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what turned out to be a curse initially, where we felt like, we weren't even told it was going to be streamed. And then when it was streamed, the audio didn't even work properly. And
the fact that we blocked the PA at sound check.
Yeah, and we didn't get a sound check. But it ended up being a blessing because I got access to all the materials and we got to put it out the way that it should be. And as no one was more surprised than us when it started to go, not viral really, but semi-viral maybe, and now it's got like 160,000 views or something. But no one was more surprised than us about that. And
I'm surprised about that.
Yeah. But back to Jerry's point, it's just funny because we did all the preparation for it to be a one-time live performance, which Brad was at, and as it turned out, now we get to be on a forum like this, talking with all of you and with Kurt and Andrew and everyone listening in on the chat, that this would never have been possible did the live stream of the Melbourne Guitar Show turn out perfect.
That's right. Yeah.
What we're doing right now would not be happening if the live stream went perfect. So it's funny that what seems like a curse is actually a blessing when you put enough time between it, Right.
And what a better time to be able to promote yourself, self-promote yourself when you can't go out and gig.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. In a year from now, we're just going to be like, man, remember when we had to do YouTube shows? Now, we have no time at home.
Well,
right?
There's something that Jerry and I can announce that Jerry and I and the rest of the guys in the Fair Warning Band have been talking about kind of behind closed doors. This is probably not a great surprise to some people, but that here on this show now, given that the extended Melbourne lockdowns have meant that our tribute to the life of Eddie Van Halen has now been postponed for more than a whole year past his passing.
Yeah.
So really, it's at the point now where whenever that live show happens, it's just going to be, at the moment, it's dated as mid-January, but if there's further lockdowns, who knows when that'll happen. In the meantime, what we will do is Jerry talking about all the things the journey he's been on in learning Alex's, deep diving on Alex's drums for Van Halen 1 and listening for me for the isolated tracks and deep diving on the guitar parts for Van Halen 1. And I know I can speak the same for Jason with the bass parts and Dave for the vocals. What we will do, should the Corner Hotel show just keep getting postponed because of COVID, the one thing that we will be able to do, even if it's to a very limited closed house audience, is we're going to start deep diving on the Van Halen 2 album. And so that's next.
I didn't agree to that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. What?
Hey, buddy, you told me that was why you bought the snare drum.
That's right. Yeah, no, right. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that in terms of whatever this crazy world we're living in, the one thing that Jerry and I and Jason and Dave can do that will be entertaining for us, but hopefully for everyone else as well, is do an equally deep dive on Van Halen 2. So there it is.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of homework on that one.
Woo. Yeah. Kurt, the Bumblebee guitar is the Van Halen 2 guitar. That's right.
You want me to send it your way?
Yes, please. Dude, it took me 30 years to get to Van Halen 1. I'm going to have to do some real serious I'm going to need some serious help for 6 months to Van Halen too.
Oh,
So I'm going to have to say, mate, if you're going to do Van Halen too, then, mate, our conversations that we have on the phone, you're going to have to cut them down to at least half to put more time into learning that section.
That's impossible, Brad. Not with Simon.
And I will say this, no matter how much work is going to go into the guitar parts, I can promise you that the part of it that is going to give me tingles up and down my spine the most is just hearing Jason do all that opening Michael Anthony stuff with the flanger. which is like the Swedish chef from the Muppets on bass, you know.
Oh, wow.
Are we going to get blocked for saying that?
So what was that?
Are we going to get blocked for saying that?
Swedish chef? Nah.
Okay, good. All right.
I've actually got a version of me somewhere that Nina Ferro has of me singing Dreams in Swedish as the Swedish chef.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I got to get a hold of that.
Well, Kurt, if I can
I
get,
won't
if
do
I
it
can get,
anyway, that I swear.
if I can get Nina to send that to me, Kurt, I promise I'll pass it on.
You might regret that.
It's gonna sound like Sice Noodles from the Cantina in Star Wars. You know when she does. Yeah. Anyway,
That's
well,
funny.
you know what? We could probably keep talking about Alex for a whole second episode, which maybe that will need to be. But what do you guys think? That's been like
Andrew, let me show like 4 or 5 pictures, and I'll just burn through them real quick.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should do a part 2 of this down the track. Definitely, guys.
We definitely should do a part 2 of Alex for sure. Yeah,
there's way more we can deep dive into, and I would love to actually ask a ton of questions I got here, but I don't want to.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do it this late in the episode because I think we keep it when we're all fresh and do it all. You know,
why don't we do Brad an episode closer to Christmas, and we'll get Jerry back on, and we'll do a part 2 of Alex Van Halen.
I think it's mandatory. We have to.
Yeah, mandatory. Yeah, look at him. What a smiling, handsome lad.
What a guy.
So, Jerry, do you see the JB weld on the end of his cowbell there?
Oh yeah, what's that?
Probably a goop of, just rigging it together.
Far out.
Okay.
Did he melt? Did he kind of weld it to the actual stand?
Now,
Yeah,
Jerry, is that kit going to fit on the drum riser at Corner Hotel?
Yeah.
Actually, talk to Brad because he's going to be lugging it in. So
you know what? I was going to be using the triple Marshall stat rig. I think I'm going to turn up with my little Fender 40-watt Blues Deluxe.
That kit is actually the Corner Hotel.
There's his newer kit.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks awesome. Oh, my God. And that looks awesome, too.
2012.
So, Jerry, are they off the buns?
I saw that year.
Man, Kurt, that looks so cool.
Did you take these photos, Kurt?
No.
Okay. So you'd be right up there. Now, what's that one?
Oh, yeah, this is an aerial shot of 98, I think.
You know,
balance.
No, Van Halen 3.
Okay, right.
I love Kurt that Alex is one of the handful of drummers in the world where you can say this is an aerial shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, that kit was on display at NAMM.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Is that the one? Yeah, in the Ludwig section. So apparently, you can see that those 2 bass drums are joined up, but more with a. If you focus in a little bit on that, on the one
PVC ring.
The one
to the right
over here.
Man.
To the right. Yeah, you can see that there's like a rod which is connecting those 2 together.
Yeah. And is this one just for looks? It's false?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there's no bass drum pedal hooked up like a remote.
Yeah, you're right. There's no bass drum pedals on the other side. Yeah. However, can I just say, is it wrong of me that when I look at that, the flamboyance of it, it gives me tingles anyway?
Oh, it's incredible, man. You know.
Look at his pants.
Hey!
Yes.
What is that?
and they're buttons, those clip buttons, you know, for
you have some of those
pail, for that pail that sits next to him.
Oh, that's what it is.
Oh, of course. Now,
That's a sunroof, like you got in your new car, Simon.
Yeah.
Before we wrap this, Andrew, I have to ask. I'm sure I've read or heard somewhere that live Alex did have the bucket next to him or some kind of device that enabled him to not need to run to the men's room. Is this fact?
Yeah.
Apparently. Well, documented.
Yeah.
Jerry,
We
look
tried
at all the
finding photos on one of the shows that we did. But we couldn't find any. So if anybody's got anything,
yep, send it through. Jerry and I tried during the week to find some evidence of that too, and we couldn't. But that's not probably a surprise.
Okay, real quick on this photo, guys. On this show, we used to have this saying, "Where's Don Landy?" This was just taken and posted like today.
Oh,
Landy's on the left. That's him.
Yep. Wow.
This was taken at a studio recently.
Okay. Very cool.
Boy, wouldn't Don be an amazing chat? Give us all the insights about everything.
Yep.
Straight.
That's your next task, is to get Don Landy on the show, brother.
I've been trying for months.
Yeah, but Jerry can do it.
Yeah, sure, man.
Oh man.
Here's the one of Brad's jeans that he used to wear back in the 2000s. That's a mini set someone made.
I still wear them.
Oh, someone made that.
Yeah,
it's a mini kit. It's a miniature kit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to say, there is something about the look of that kit that turns me on. Oh, look at that. It's like a cross between some funny car kind of drag strip and HR Giga's Alien.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
I think I got one more. There's the Van Halen 3 kit. There's another aerial shot, guys. Look at that.
Yeah. Man, the aerial shot looks ridiculous.
That was probably a drone shot or something.
Is that the one with that's the one with the fridge?
Correct.
Yeah. It's the blue sparkle or something rather that, you know, got a fridge in it, man. Can you believe that? Far out.
Kenny Chesney.
Only real drummers have a refrigerator in their bass drum.
That's why I haven't got one. I'm not a real drummer.
Oh, please.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
That's a beautiful. That's more natural looking, and it looks beautiful.
He had some Ludwig made him. Obviously, they make a kit for him on every tour, but the lugs where it would say Ludwig, like, you know, on this one you've got, you know, you got the air hole and you got the Ludwig sort of badge.
Yeah,
yeah. On that particular kit, where the air hole was, there was actually the VH logo.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
It looks amazing. It looks incredible. You know, just as a side point, you know. Yeah, that looks like it's taken from that. Is that the Jimmy Kimmel gig outside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's I got skipped over for some reason. This is from '73.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's incredible.
Yeah. Get the Schlitz malt liquor down here.
Uh-huh.
That's a whole backyard part. That's one of their backyard party vibes. That looks so cool. I love that he's got no skins on the front.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no front head.
Duct tape on the mic. Look at that. One mic, duct taped.
Yeah. Off you go. Project. Off you go and project, young man. You know.
Man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, great photos, man.
Awesome. Cool, Jerry, it's been fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up. I'm going to ask Jerry and Hos to just give their words. I'll ask the Rev to go through and do a quick shout out to everybody, and I'll get Brad to sign us all off. Just don't forget, guys, to follow our social medias, please. We're going to be live tomorrow with the Rock Professor doing LA Woman, ranking the tracks on LA Woman. Gerry, do you want us to attach any social media links or any links to any of the companies that you're endorsed with on this video? I'm more than happy to do that. If you want to shoot those through, I can attach them when I edit the video.
Or companies he wants to get endorsements from, we'll attach those too.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy with the D-dubs. Thank you very much. And Evan's Drumhead.
Awesome.
Promo drum.
So thank you for joining us, Gerry and Hos. So if you guys want to do a quick shout out before we do our normal ending of the shows, this is your opportunity, guys.
Well, let me just quickly say then that thank you everyone for an amazing show. It's gone far longer than we thought it would, and I feel like it could only be a part one. There's so much more stuff to talk about the genius Alex Van Halen. I've been playing with Gerry since I was 19 years old, and I think that that's why we have such a synergy. So even though that we're not blood brothers, Gerry and I also both grew up with jazz. And I think that that's maybe not an accident that when we decided to jam and play Van Halen stuff, we kind of mostly did David Lee Roth era, which if you think about it, from when Sammy joined, Alex's playing became much less swingy and jazzy. There was less boogies. There was less swing. It was more straight ahead mid-80s rock and roll. And maybe because Gerry and I both grew up with jazz, that's why we naturally went towards the David Lee Roth era stuff. But one thing that I would just like to leave on is this, and that if anyone doubts the absolute weight and influence that Alex Van Halen has on the band Van Halen, Eddie is my idol, and one of the reasons why I wanted to play electric guitar in the first place. And anytime I've heard Eddie play, and I say this with most sincere heart, even though he's my idol, whenever I've heard Eddie play not with Alex, he doesn't sound like Eddie to me. And I don't mean that to be knocking Eddie, but the truth is that the two of those brothers playing together sound 10 times better than either of them playing alone. And that is a magic, you know, and I think that is the magic of brothers, and I think it's the magic of Alex Van Halen.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well said, Simon. I'm not sure I can add more to that, but Alex, to me, pretty much brings together a lot of the stuff that I grew up listening to, and he captured all that with the style of music that his brother was writing and the direction that the band took in various forms. Alex doesn't seem to get, well, from my experience, the credit and the sort of being put on that pedestal as what I think he should be. He often gets overlooked as far as the rock drummer thing. So I think it's because he's more than that. He's more than a rock drummer. He's actually a musician. Big difference, in my view.
Yep.
Big difference from being just a rock drummer to being a musician. To me, Alex is a musician. I'll give you a classic, just a classic example of that. On the recent Van Halen tour now, Kurt, you probably saw this, the last one they did, right? Yes, during Alex's drum solo, he played to a backing track.
Yeah, it was Toto.
Thank you.
Toto,
right. I'm glad someone else. Jake to the Bone.
Jake to the Bone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, not anybody would pick that up. I'm glad you did, because you got ears and you love music, not just Van Halen. You love everything, right? You know, you love Toto. I'm a big Toto fan too, man. Like Jeff Becerra.
Desire is my favorite Toto album.
Jeff Becerra is one of my idols. You know.
You know what? there's another drummer that's up there with Alex.
Totally, man. And so when I saw like some bootleg YouTube footage of Alex taking a solo, and there's a track going on. It's a Latin thing first, and all of a sudden it goes into the thing in 7. And Alex is burning on it. Like to me, he's not a rock drummer, man. He's a musician. So it pains me to say this, that not many drummers look in his direction. They look in, they go back and look at Bonham, and it stops there. They should be going further back.
Further back. Agreed.
Go and listen to Max Roach. Go and listen to Elvin Jones. Go and listen to Buddy Rich. Go and listen to Gene Krupa, because that's what Alex was exposed to. And I feel all those elements contributes to being a better drummer. You may not like the music. At least give it a shot to listen to it and capture and hear the vibe that these musicians were bringing. Because I reckon if those guys, let's say Alvin and Max, grew up in a different era, I wonder what music they were playing. Which brings me to someone like Tony Williams. Now, Tony Williams, before he passed away, he was listening to Metallica, and he was trying to figure out a morphing of a way of incorporating the jazz and the fusion thing that he did with Holdsworth in the album, the Believe It album with Proto Cosmos and all those great tracks that Tony, the Lifetime band. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Tony Williams, Lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tony started out with Miles, got into the fusion thing, started progressing. He was listening to Metallica. Actually, one of the last photos of Tony endorsing a drum kit was a double bass drum kit. So one can only think what he was going to be doing next. So he may have come across Alex. He may have heard that, and he's like, So I encourage drummers to not just listen to drums. Listen to everything, and that's going to make you a better drummer to the style of music that you want to play. And I feel that I was lucky in my regard. I grew up in a musical family. My dad was a professional musician. He's retired. I grew up with so much music in the house, which I can't tell you how much stuff that was going down. And then throw in the mix my brother bringing home all these jazz records, which then kind of took me another direction. And then listening to that, practicing, doing this, learning how to play a shuffle, learning how to play a jazz thing. It was, learning how to play, like a Big Bad Bill is swing really now. Something like that.
But the truth is, you can't even play what would be a light-hearted jerk song like Big Bad Bill authentically if you didn't listen to all that authentic stuff.
That's right, and that's what Alex did.
Yeah,
Alex did that.
Yep.
And so that's what I love about him as a player, and him definitely as a musician. And God, I hope one day I get a chance to meet him, because I'd just like to shake his hand and just say, thanks, pretty much, So that's my thoughts on Alex. And I love, I could go on maybe for part 2.
Maybe we do a part 2 where we give our top 10 Alex Van Halen songs.
Oh, you know what? That's a great idea, Kurt. We should all pick our top 5 favorite Alex Van Halen drum grooves, and that's part 2, and we'll talk about all of them
down. Yeah.
I'm totally down.
Done.
Cool.
But I just want to.
But there's the extra twist though is that Jerry's got to play all of them.
Yeah, right. Is that the time I better be going? I could probably play some of them, but not all of them, right? So
No, you'll be right. You'll be right, brother.
I sincerely want to thank you guys for having me on the show, and all those that have been leaving these comments. I've been trying to keep up with it. I'm not that tech savvy that I can scroll and read and listen at the same time, because I'm really bad at multitasking. So
I've never heard a drummer bad at multitasking.
Yeah,
trust me. I'm bad at it, man. Right?
Go back and have a look, Gerry, because there's been some awesome comments from people in the chat. Awesome comments.
I appreciate those comments. I'll have a read later, and onwards and upwards. That's all I can say. And thanks, Alex Van Halen.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Gerry.
And thanks, guys. Brad, Andrew, Kurt, Hos. Man, who would have thought all those years ago, man, something would amount to this.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right, Andrew, I'll read off who's in the chat, who's still watching. Actually, people are piling in now as we're closing up. We got Simon Williams, Leo Safko, Sonia, of course, John ZD351, Susan, Silvestri, G. Bushnoff, winner of the 5150 pick.
Yeah.
Tanner, Chrisdell Music, Keith Campbell, he's on his 6th drink. Ellen, who else? Leo Safko, not sure if I said him. Nelson Rodriguez. Let me check back here on this. Helen Winter. And I think that's about it.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone in the chat for joining us today. We've had a lot of people watching us. And, thank you so much. Our show just keeps getting better and better. And we're, if it wasn't for you guys, it wouldn't be happening. So the organic growth we're getting is because of you guys in the chat. So big thank you to every single one of you. Everyone's having their own little chats in the middle of our conversation as well.
Very cool, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to keep looking off into the chat box there, and there's whole separate conversations happening. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So thank you so much. Anyone that's watching these shows back, please subscribe. Please give us the thumbs up. That's how we grow. So the more you guys do it, thank you so much. I just want to take the next minute or so to thank each and every one of you guys on the panel. Hos,
Thanks,
Gerry, Kurt, Andrew, you guys are like amazing. I've been sitting here in awe, Gerry. We can't wait for part 2. And no, because this is fascinating. I'm a self-confessed wannabe drummer. I can play drums, but not like you, mate. I'm never going to be able to go and do a show. I can do my own songs and stuff, but that's about it. But what I'm saying is, mate, we're fascinated. The deep dive that you've gone into. I have to say this. I can't wait to see Fair Warning take on the world, because I think you guys are going to be the Van Halen show. I'm sorry to say it, everyone else. You guys are amazing. And thank you so much for being part of our show. And you guys are family now. So anything that we do on the 5150 show, Fair Warning takeovers, you're welcome to do it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. You guys have a permanent invitation always to any show we do.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be considered part of the family, and we love considering you guys all friends now.
Yeah. Well, after I do all my radio work at your show, and when you guys are getting success in that, please take me with you and have me as your opening act. All right, have me as your opening act.
And then you can come to the United States, and I'll see you wherever you guys land. I'll make sure and be there.
Well, travel permitting, Kurt, that we do have someone looking to manage us, and if the world opens up and gets less crazy next year, we will hopefully be coming over to the States and doing some shows, which will be heaps of fun.
Yep, I'll jump on a plane. I don't care.
So will we.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We'll come pick you up, mate. We'll do a drive. We'll pick you up.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.